There.
Okay. Can you hear us, Ed? Can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Got to make sure we've got communication here.
Ed, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
He's saying yes, but he's muted.
Talking.
Okay.
Okay. Ed Gallagher?
Yep, here.
Can't hear him.
Hear him.
You can hear, you can.
Are you muted, Ed?
Yes, I'll go deal with it. Ed, can you say here?
Here, yes.
Okay, we can't hear him.
Can't hear him.
He's working on it.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to keep going until we got
Right.
communication.
Oh, less than last time. Oh, I think. At least the last time I looked.
Ed, can you hear now?
I can hear you.
Okay, we can
All
hear
right,
you.
good to go.
Okay.
We hear you now.
All right. We have met compliance with official notifications. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. I also want to go over some basic meeting protocol and then review the agenda. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for comments by members of the public during the meeting as indicated on the agenda. That time may be limited by board action. Members of the public wishing to address the board on any of the topics included on tonight's agenda should have done so by registering on the public comment sign-up sheet upon arrival tonight. Comments should be focused on the items being considered by the board and will be restricted to no more than 3 minutes in length. The board may limit the total time dedicated to public comment. So everyone understands, the first action item on the agenda is to determine if the board wants to put a time parameter on total time limit on public comment. That's just going to be an action item that we'll discuss. Once that is determined, we will have the public comments regarding the gender identity curriculum material. I will call off the names of those who signed up. And again, you'll have that 3 minutes to speak. And out of fairness to everyone, there will be no exceptions. It'll be at 3 minutes. Ann will be our timer and we'll hold up a yellow card. You got the yellow card? When you have 1 minute left and a red when your time is done.
Len,
They're saying they can't hear you.
go closer to the microphone.
Pull it closer, otherwise I'll be terrible. All right, Ann will be our timer and will hold up a yellow card when you have 1 minute left and red when your time is done. The board is here to listen to your comments. And so you are aware the board is not allowed to respond or get into dialogue during the public comments. During the public comments and during the presentations, I'm asking that everyone be respectful of each other and stay quiet while others are speaking. When the public comments are completed, we will move into review of the curriculum complaint. I would ask both the petitioner and the administration to introduce themselves and anyone who might be presenting with them prior to starting the presentations. Their 30 minutes to present will start after the introductions. Any questions the board may have should wait until we move to that last action item. When the reviews are complete, the board will then take up the last action item and decide on the appeal of the district administrator's decision regarding gender identity curriculum material. With that, we'll move into the first action item. Consideration to amend policy 00167.3 for this special session to create specific time parameters in relation to public comments.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. And I'll start it by saying, does anybody want to restrict it? Or
And how many people signed up?
35? 35. So 35 people. Personally, I say, let everybody speak.
I agree, Len.
I agree.
I agree.
Agree.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed? There's that delay.
think Ed said nay, correct?
I'm in agreement. I said aye.
Oh, he's in agreement.
Oh, okay. All right, motion carries. With that, excuse me, we will move into the public comment. I will call off names, and when I call your name, please come up to the podium and to the microphone. First, we have Eliza Wilson.
Hello, is this on? Oh. Thank you. Hello, I'm Eliza Wilson. I am a lifelong resident of Superior, Wisconsin, and I attended the Superior Public Schools my entire education. I want the board to understand that a decision to remove explicit instruction of what gender identity is not a decision to stop students from learning about that. When I was in school, we did not have any explicit instruction about this. There was no teachers that were talking about what it means to be transgender. But even though we didn't hear about it explicitly, we did learn about it. We learned about it from our peers when peers would make jokes and talk about trans people as monsters, and learned that being trans is something to be ashamed of, and that if you are transgender, you are not truly someone who should be accepted in the school communities. When I was in my last few days in this building as an 8th grader, I was playing chess in my social studies classroom with a classmate, and the teacher was sitting to the side of us watching the game. And my classmate made a crude joke about a king turning into a queen. And I felt this white hot flash of shame, even though I didn't know I was trans at that point. But what was even worse was that my teacher didn't address it, really. He was right there, he heard it. And he didn't signal that that was not a way that my classmate should have spoke. And that's something that I absorbed. And I can talk about many, many, many experiences of that here through my K through 12 experience. And I really wish that my classmate would have been receiving instruction that that was not appropriate and that their trans peers aren't any less than them. I wish I would have received instruction that it was okay for me to be myself, and that I also wish that my teacher would have known how to address that. Because when I started telling my friend group that I was transgender and word got out, even though most people did not know, my friends would come to me and they would ask me for help. They would ask me for help with parents who were abusive because they were transgender. They would ask me for resources and support when I was in the same boat as them, because they didn't feel safe going to the adults they should have been able to feel safe with, because there wasn't anything affirming us, and that affected our learning. That it was really hard to not have that support, and that's why I am telling the story, and that's why I'm asking the board to keep this as part of the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. Wolf.
Hello, thanks for letting me speak. My name is Andy Wolf. I've been a teacher in this district for the past 32 years. I'm now an instructional coach, but I spent those 32 years as an English teacher. So I want to address something that was in the complainant's document concerning standard English, formal English. and the comment that this is too new, that it'd be too confusing for our fifth graders. So first of all, let's take a look at how do we set a standard of formal English. One argument could be that we use the authors themselves, the ones that we teach. Take Geoffrey Chaucer, who used the word they as a singular. William Shakespeare in Hamlet. Hamlet refers to his mother as a singular using the word they. Charles Dickens in many novels in the 1880s and earlier was using the word they as a singular. So to say that this is too new, that it is not established enough is false. What is formal English? Well, if you'd like something a little bit more modern, why don't you use the Associated Press style manual that I use to teach my journalism students, which has the word they as a singular, and it was put in there in 2017. Or if you'd rather, you could use the Merriam-Webster dictionary, who chose the word as the word of the year in 2019 when they inserted it in their dictionary as formal, not informal, not slang, but a formal word as a singular, for a singular person. The last thing I want to do, I want to make a point about age appropriateness when it comes to identity. What I saw in the document was the wording of unnecessary and inappropriate for a fifth grader to be thinking about their identity. I don't know myself what it is to be trans or to be fluid or to wonder about gender identity, but I'll tell you the story of my son, Tommy, whose name on his birth certificate was Thomas Christopher Wolf. In kindergarten, in first grade, he would come home and he would tell my wife and I, Jenny, how upset he was sometimes. And I would say, Tommy, what's wrong? And he'd be like, I am not being recognized for who I am at school. I am not Thomas. They keep calling me Thomas. In second grade, he spoke up more vehemently and said to us, I want my name legally changed. I no longer want to be called Thomas. It's not who I am. He was in second grade. I said, Tommy, let's hang in there. It's not a big deal. This will go away. In fourth grade, came home crying, first day of school. Once again, Dad, I'm going to start a year with my name as Thomas. That is not who I am. So we said, okay, we looked it up. It cost $250. We had to go before a judge and we legally had his name changed. Last night, when I asked him if I could use this story today, he said, sure, Dad, go ahead. I said, well, how did you feel after the name change in fourth grade? And he said, I finally felt comfortable at school. I finally felt respect for who I really am. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Megan. I'm a mom, a voting citizen of the Superior School District. I'm a licensed foster parent in Douglas County. I'm trauma informed. I care deeply about the vulnerable youth of our community. And I'm here in support of the parents who are asking for the gender identity curriculum to be moved from the elementary schools in the Superior School District. I attended the August 8th school board meeting. I sat quietly and respectfully listened to several parents, teachers, students, administrators, and community members express a genuine concern that moving this curriculum out of the fifth grade would result in bullying, harassment, and negative mental health outcomes for the students of the district. Going into the meeting, I was unaware of the district's mission statement, but let me tell you, by the end of the meeting, I knew it well. All means all, every student, every day. It's an admirable mission, and if accomplished, would truly make our schools superior. However, it wasn't too long into the meeting when public comments were made on behalf of the parent petitioners that laughing, mocking, harassment began from those in favor of the current curriculum. Since the meeting, the bullying and harassment towards those who support the parent petitioners has only increased. How can a group of people who say they are concerned about the bullying and harassment they claim will occur if a 30-minute fifth grade health lesson isn't taught be taken seriously when they stoop to bullying and harassing those who have a different opinion on the matter? I'm beginning to understand why bullying is such a concern. This isn't something that is taught. It's something that is modeled. The example that was set on August 8th and since then is that when you disagree with someone, It's okay to laugh at them, to mock them, to intimidate them, and to bully them. How in the world is this all means all? How is this uniting? We, the adults, need to model how to respect and value those with whom we disagree. The mission statement of this district is doomed to fail if it isn't being upheld by the adults in our schools. Thank you.
Madison, Christie?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dr. Jordan Unison Chisti, and I'm the Executive Director of Lighthouse. Lighthouse works with homeless youth in our region who are living through challenging and heart-wrenching transitions in their life between the ages of 14 to 24. They are survivors of sexual exploitation, human trafficking, fleeing abusive family environments, recovering from substance misuse, and working to obtain their GEDs. Of the 900 young people we see every year, 20% of our youth are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning their gender identity. They come to us to connect with trustworthy and caring adults. I'm a 50-year-old transgender man who at the age of 9 years old began questioning and struggling with my gender identity. By the time I was 11, I had no idea what I did wrong to not feel like I fit in this world. At that age, I decided that I needed to run away when I was old enough, change my name, vanish, and live my life under a new name that fit my gender. When I figured out this was not going to be possible, I figured out how I could die and leave this world. At the age of 17, I started to plan my funeral on an April 6, 1989 at 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon. In the chapel at my school, I put a gun to my heart and pulled the trigger. And by the grace of God, I stand before you today. I have struggled with addictions, feelings of worthlessness, going through an education where no one talked about gender identity and expression. When I was in the hospital bed, I said, no one should ever have to feel that hopeless in their life. The curriculum that has been presented and approved provides hope for not only the children in that classroom, it provides hope for all those youth who are out there fighting for their lives right now. All the children coming through the classroom behind them, it provides hope for your teachers, your principals, your parents, siblings, and community members at large. Hope that someone will see the child for who they are, who they want to be, and have the freedom to explore what life is truly about, what their spirit is truly being called to share with all of us. You have a room full of people here looking at you, paying attention to the decision you have to make. There was a curriculum that was approved which provides space and information for children about gender that could potentially validate who they are. It could literally save their life and reduce the chances of a parent losing the child. There are a lot of different gender expressions and ways to identify in this world. By not allowing teachers to educate our children about gender identity, you are not only creating more isolation, misunderstandings, hurt, and demonstrating a lack of compassion for our children and parents, it creates an environment and classroom based on a sense of not being open to all beings belonging in this world. As you listen this evening to all public comments, the presenters, and discuss how to proceed, please be fully aware of how many children and parents' lives you have in your hand. I'm asking you to fully support the curriculum that has been already approved to openly talk about gender identity and expression in the classroom. Support a gender identity curriculum to provide hope for our future generations and community leaders. Thank you for your service.
My name is Lynn Hudasik. I'm here today because I have 4 grandchildren who attend public schools in this district. I have listened to the August 8th school board meeting and watched the videos and slideshow on gender and pronouns, and I have to admit, I was shocked at what I saw and heard. They're telling children that just because you're born with a penis, that doesn't make you a boy, or just because you're born with a vulva, that doesn't make you a girl. It says that every child needs to decide for themselves what gender they want to be. and you can switch from one gender to another depending on how you feel that day. What? Your DNA does not change from day to day. I know there can be gender issues at birth, but they are quite rare. I also read the appeal letter and every page of that long document that provides the reasons why there is opposition to the gender identity and pronoun curriculum. I do not know any of the people who are part of this appeal, but I feel it was very well written with many valid reasons why this curriculum should not be taught to fifth graders in a public school setting. This gender identity curriculum is based on what a student feels, not science and not common sense. Basing major decisions on feelings is a very dangerous thing to do. If a child feels like eating junk food for 3 meals a day, would a good parent just let them go by their feelings? Or if a child feels that he should be able to stay up till midnight on school nights, would the parent just go with the child's feelings? So why are adults in our public schools encouraging them to make life-changing decisions about gender when their brains are not even close to fully developed and capable of making much less serious decisions? And I would like to know if any of you board members or the curriculum developers have listened to the stories of some who have transitioned. Have you listened to the heartache of those who have gone so far as to take the blockers and had surgeries to remove parts of their bodies and are so very, very sorry that they did? They say they have been devastated because the joy, peace, and relief from their depression that they thought would come with the transition did not come, or it was very short-lived. So you may, out of compassion and concern for students, think you are doing what's best for them, but you must look at the long-term effects of what you are encouraging these students to do. The one thing these young people had in common was that they wished that the people in education, counselors, and the medical profession would not have made it so easy for them to go with their feelings on gender issues. With time, many of them absolutely regretted having made the decisions they did at such a young age. You have these kids for a few years, these teachers, the schools, but many of them have to live the rest of their lives with the irreversible decisions that are made. If you've not studied those who have been through this and are now pleading to be heard, then you should at the very least not vote until you have, or vote to repeal this curriculum until you have studied the opposition thoroughly. Thank you.
Hello there. Did anybody see Mr. Rogers outside, or Walt Whitman? I was kind of surprised when I walked up and saw these, luminaries outside the school. I didn't realize we were going to attract such a crowd. Apparently those are provided by a local artist and their LGBTQ figures and allies. Listening to some of the comments, the presence of these statues, it seems like a lot of people think that the issue here is whether or not members of the LGBTQ community should be treated with love and respect. And I know others have said it and will say it again, but I'm going to say it as well. That is not the issue at hand here. At least speaking for myself, I have no animosity to any of the members of that community in this room. As humans, we all are entitled to love and respect. We're going through this life together. What I do have an issue with is a curriculum that presents theory and opinion as fact. The idea that one can be born in the wrong body, the idea that a man can become a woman, these are somewhat new ideas, I think, at least to a lot of people. They're certainly not widely, universally accepted in culture, and they're not demonstrable. You can't prove this. If one were to say, I was born in the wrong body, how do you test that as you would a geometry theorem or something else we might teach in school? These are unprovable beliefs, but the curriculum does not present them as beliefs. The curriculum does not say, some people believe this, or even this theory presents that. The curriculum presents it as an absolute known and axiomatic truth that should not be doubted. It's presented as we would present gravity, and it's presented to fifth graders, as has been mentioned. That's a population that arguably doesn't have all the tools to deal with this. They lack life experience, perhaps critical reasoning skills, right? Honestly, one of the teachers who spoke in favor of this curriculum at the last meeting, I thought he really summed this up well when he pointed out that from a perspective of developmental biology, the 5th to the 6th grade is a significant change. And after 5th grade, students will be less likely to simply take at face value what's presented to them by adult authority figures. And that was the case for keeping the curriculum. Personally, I feel that's the reason to not have the curriculum. We have a curriculum that is one-sided. There's no counter argument to this. It's presented as fact, assumed to be true, and presented to an audience that lacks the wherewithal to properly process complex questions that many adults struggle with. And if you watch the video that's in the curriculum, you can see these kids as they're being coached and they're struggling and they're kind of making faces at each other on the video as they're trying to explain this from one another, because it is not axiomatic. It is not natural and true. I feel this is not an attempt to educate children. This is an abuse of pedagogical authority. This is trying to imprint on children a particular opinion on a very divisive issue. Look at this. This is a school board meeting. Who likes to go to school board meetings? I mean, more of us should, but I think those of you who've been on the board for a while probably know it's not a common pastime. There's a lot of people here because a lot of people care about this. These are not provable assertions. Thank you very much.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Aiden. I'm a voting citizen in Superior School District and a student at the University of Wisconsin-Superior. And I would just like to engage in a very quick thought experiment. So imagine that we analyzed the data and found that Christian students are more likely to face bullying in middle and high school, as well as increased amounts of depression, anxiety, and risk of suicide. Our solution to this problem, bullying, risk of suicide, mental health, is to implement a curriculum starting at the 5th grade level that will teach the core tenets of Christianity. Belief in an immortal soul, the existence of heaven and hell, etc. These ideals and principles would be presented not from multiple perspectives. Some people believe this, others believe other things, but instead as objective fact. Parents who question this curriculum always have the opportunity to opt out from it. And anyone who thinks that public schools simply shouldn't be teaching one-sided philosophies will be pressured, harassed, and criticized as being anti-Christian bigots. End of thought experiment. Let's get back to reality. This current 5th grade curriculum is being taught as objective fact, despite being made up of various subjective and ideological positions on gender and human sexuality. Those of us who disagree with this curriculum are accused of not caring about these students' mental health and well-being. I think it's safe to say that everyone here cares about these students, or they wouldn't be here tonight. But some of us think that the public schools shouldn't be pushing one particular subjective worldview regarding gender in 5th grade. It's not the school teacher's job to impart on 5th graders abstract concepts about the human person, especially if rather than presenting multiple equal viewpoints, she emphasizes a specific philosophy. In this case, modern gender theory. Ask the members of the school board to seriously consider the parental request to remove these controversial curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Travis. I'm a parent of 3 children in the district and 1 foster child in the district. I don't think it's an over-exaggeration to say that this is the most controversial subject in the United States since Roe v. Wade. That's why all these people are here tonight. And it's my opinion, and I think it's pretty much common sense. This is basically trendy leftist ideology that's never been accepted by a very large portion of this country. Traditionalists, people that go to church, and a large section of parents. I have a fun quote from one of my favorite entertainers. His name is Bill Maher, noted liberal Democrat. He says, "This is so new and trendy that we have to be able to pause and ask questions without being called a bigot." He also said, "We're literally experimenting on children. And this is just a blow in the culture war, using kids as cannon fodder." This is a Democrat trying to raise the red flag, saying, you need to stop and slow down, at least slow down here, people. A lot of people are not on board with this. And I think some people in the district know this, and that's why they wanted to ram it through as quick as possible, but there's a little bit of a roadblock here. I ask, if you think this is really popular, why don't you survey elementary school parents and see what they think? I think you'll be surprised at the results. I was just talking to my daughter the other day. She's 21 years old. She says, you know what, when I was in 5th grade, I went through a bit of a tomboy phase. Boy, I'm glad they didn't show me those videos. I'm glad they didn't talk to me about being in the wrong gender. That could have really confused me. That could have been really devastating. That could have made my life really miserable. So I'm asking you to get this curriculum out. We're not against trans people. We're against you trying to trans our kids. This is a parent's responsibility to touch on these subjects with our children, not the districts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna. I have 2 kids in the district. And as one of the parents who signed the original curriculum complaint, I'm here tonight to provide some insight into how this all began and to clarify a lot of misinformation that's circulating. This past spring, many district families with kids in elementary schools discovered that the school had, without much transparency, added a new gender identity unit to the human growth and development lesson in 5th grade. And to many families, this lack of transparency felt like an intentional way to hide curriculum that the district knew would be concerning for many families, especially when in years prior, all human growth material was provided to families up front. So, following the district's own formal complaint policy, these parents decided to outline their concerns. There were 7 concerns, and I know you've read them all. Parents hope that this process would prove to be informative, create dialogue between the district and concerned families, and outline possible remedies. But instead, the complaint process failed to address 6 out of the 7 questions and concerns, forcing parents to file this appeal just to have a chance at being heard. That's why we're here tonight. This process has created a whirlwind of misinformation. This appeal has been twisted by members of the public into accusations of certain elected board member agenda, and that is extremely frustrating as it undermines and exploits our genuine parent concern. I'm asking that we please keep the politics and personal attacks out of this and see the appeal for what it is. It's families asking to be heard. I want to talk about what this appeal is not. Number 1, it's not an effort to marginalize a group of students. We love all students and believe all should be supported. We believe this can be accomplished without this curriculum. Marches and rallies fighting for injustice, that's a misrepresentation of why we're here tonight and what this appeal is about. We love and respect all, and we don't need a curriculum, a rally, or a march to accomplish that. We're already all agree on that. Number 2, it's not a political or religious agenda. There have been accusations that these were affiliated with some religious or political organization, and that's not true. We're just real parents with real concerns. Number 3, we're not banning preferred pronouns or names. Number 4, this is not stemming from intolerance or hate. So what is this appeal about? Age appropriateness. You've heard that over and over tonight. Let's not fool ourselves into thinking that a 30-minute lesson on gender identity is going to solve a problem of bullying or disrespect. We need to teach and model love and respect. That is a lesson that is age appropriate. Number 2, bring back the opt-in. Why did that go away? Why did it change the year this material was added? We still haven't had that question answered. Why? Consider providing the curriculum to families as supplemental materials at the elementary level. Put it back in the hands of families. Number 3, move the curriculum out of elementary. Let's move it up when kids have more of the maturity and mental capacity to navigate this complex issue. Number 4, does it meet the threshold for controversial material in the classroom? I don't believe it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dominic Choco. I live in Superior, Wisconsin with my 4 children and my fiance, who happens to be the chief of staff for Mayor Payne. It is a proven study that kids who are educated about gender identity and pronouns are 3 times more prepared to help a friend from being bullied for their gender or their identity. It is also a proven fact that not educating these kids leads to more bullying in schools and isolation of the LGBTQIA plus students. Speaking as a transgender man, I've gone through the ringer with bullying and being called names. I was isolated from locker rooms, bathrooms, activities with my peers, lunch tables, the list goes on. But yet I knew before 5th grade that I was different and that my body didn't match what I thought in my head. And it wasn't just a thought, as you can clearly see today. As of 2021, 65% of the LGBTQIA youth are being bullied in person at school, and 54% of them go home and are bullied online as well. This has got to stop. The suicide rate for the LGBTQIA youth, grades 5 through 9, is an alarming 47%. 5th grade, 47%. Of these kids have either attempted or thought about attempting suicide due to being bullied, misgendered, or misunderstood. Having this curriculum in place when I was in 5th grade would not have only taught my peers how to treat people like me, but would have taught my teachers how to handle situations. We need to educate these children on all aspects of the world, not just what is comfortable to you. I know as a parent, you want to shelter your kids from harm and whatnot, but educating them in how to treat all people shouldn't be what you're sheltering them from. Speaking again as a father of 4 and a trans man, I would rather my kids learn about these things in a controlled, educated environment rather than searching Google for truth. This curriculum is only 30 minutes in total, with the option for parents to opt out of the class. I do not see the necessity to completely take this course away. It is 2022, times have absolutely changed, and people like me have voices now. To use one of my favorite quotes, you are not a bad parent for having an LGBTQIA plus child. You're a bad parent if you abandon them. We should all want our children to be happy, healthy, and successful. And in order for all kids to do that, they need to be educated on who else exists in this world with them and how to treat these people. This is an issue of common courtesy and respect for people that may be different than yourself. People tend to hate or shy away from what they don't understand, which is why having this course is so important. We do not have to continue the cycle of misunderstanding our parents taught us. We can teach our kids to be better, bolder, stronger, and more accepting in many ways than how we were growing up. So now I stand here and I ask you, no, I beg you, to think of the numbers I listed above. Think of your children's friends and even your children that may be a part of this community. Keep this curriculum so these youths don't have to feel the isolation and bullying I had to feel as I grew up.
Hello, my name is Alexa Connolly. My pronouns are she, hers. I am an independently contracted mental health therapist who works in Superior. I also have 2 little children, one of whom is just starting 4K in the Superior School District. I'm here today to show my support for the gender identity curriculum that is presented to the 5th grade students as part of the Human Growth and Development curriculum. Education surrounding gender identity is vital in that it helps schools become safe spaces for students. I've seen firsthand the repercussions that can happen when schools and communities are not safe and inclusive places for LGBTQIA plus students. I've had to make mandated reports for children who were beaten by their parents because they want to be called they instead of he or she. I've held a child's hand while they wept because their parents forced them to cut their hair to look more masculine when inside they felt more feminine. I've listened and felt my heart shatter as a child told me that they thought the only way their gender identity would ever be taken seriously would be if they completed suicide. I've watched a child cry because their parents chose to give them up rather than accept their gender identity. I have created countless safety plans for gender diverse students, too many to even recall, each time praying desperately that the coping strategies and crisis lines I listed would be enough to save their lives. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI, reports transgender youth are twice as likely to seriously consider suicide and attempt suicide compared to their cisgender peers. In fact, more than 40% of gender diverse individuals have attempted suicide in their lifetime. But suicide attempts drop it basically drops in half if people use a gender diverse individual's preferred name. Okay, it has always been clear to me that gender identity education is not only important, it is life-saving and should be more than an opt-in curriculum within our schools. Thank you for your time.
Hello again, and thank you for the opportunity to hear from the community tonight. I felt it necessary to speak again for our students, as the decision you make tonight will determine whether they are validated as individuals or not within our school district. This is the reality that this decision holds. I want you to do something with me right now. I want you to envision your child or children, your reason why you are here today. May that be your own child. Maybe it's a student. Maybe it's a neighbor, a friend. I want you to imagine how it would feel if your child or children that meant the world to you came to you expressing that they felt unloved, not valued, unheard, unseen. That they feel like they do not matter and no one understands or cares about them. That they feel worthless. Those words coming out of your loved one's mouth hurt. The HGD curriculum is age appropriate, it's inclusive and comprehensive the way that it is. It's been researched, collaborated on, and supported by most of the members sitting on this board right now. It was approved. By removing gender identity and pronoun lessons or switching this lesson to opt in instead of opt out would be making a loud message to your students, community, and state that you will not honor your mission statement of all means all, every student, every day, and you do not value all of our students as you would blatantly be neglecting our LGBTQ students and families. Superior has been leaders in inclusive practices in our state. We are sought out for help with policy work, curriculum, and our extracurricular activities and clubs. The state is watching Superior right now to see if we will stand behind our words. I urge you to continue to be the inclusive district I know and I love. Decision is quite clear to me. For my own 3 wonderful children in the district and for the hundreds of students that I value beyond measure. Please make the right decision for all and leave gender identity and pronouns in the HGD curriculum with the current opt-out option. Send the message that all means each and every one of our Spartans. Thank you.
Hello, fellow board members. My name is Christina Kintop, and I too am going to speak to you again tonight. When I look around this room, I feel like this is a time when our teachers should be getting ready for their classrooms, getting ready for an exciting new year, getting ready to welcome your precious little children into their classrooms, and they should be enjoying their last of their summer days. But instead, they're here speaking freely on their own time to talk to you about how important this curriculum is for the students that they teach. The professionals that we have hired, that we have trained and have worked with for all these years, I think we should be thinking about those professionals right now. Several years ago, this board here, many of you sitting up there, made a commitment to take a hard look at our data, and it showed that we conclusively needed to create a mission statement with an equity lens. There are numerous reasons why equity in education is important. It creates an educational experience that caters to students of all kinds. In all that we do in Superior, we use an equity lens. This means that no matter what the student's background, language, race, economic profile, gender, learning capability, disability, or family history, each one of those students has the opportunity to achieve their educational goals. Equity has opened doors for our students. We are leaders in this state. We are leaders in this community for all of our students. This is not a hard decision. This is one of the easiest ones you'll ever make. I can guarantee there's going to be hard decisions coming up. You talk about teaching kindness. This is what teaching kindness is. Wishing for kindness is not the same as doing the work. We need to put in the work to relay that kindness. Superior has put in that work. This is not new curriculum. This has been around for a long time. Many of us have served on those committees of the Human Growth and Development with community members, pastors, business leaders, students, administrators, teachers. And every time we listen, never have I heard that this curriculum should be restricted. Every time I've served on it, it has been asked to be expanded. If you don't understand this curriculum, I urge you to be a part of that committee. It was really an eye-opener for me. We must understand that as public educators, public education is what unites us. I support this administration. I support the research-based, peer-reviewed DPI, which is the Department of Public Instruction required curriculum. I trust our professionals. If you don't, you have the option to opt out, which has been brought here. Kindness is genuine conversations that lead to understanding and acceptance. Isn't that what we're all striving for? Please continue to be the inclusive district that we have worked so hard to be. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Smith Johnson. I've had 2 kids come through the school district. My husband and I have graduated from this school district. All of our parents and grandparents have gone through this district. I am a recently retired special education teacher in Duluth. We have 8,000 students over there. We have approximately 4,000-ish students here. I would go district-wide over there as an itinerant teacher. I was in all of the buildings. I've worked with so many students and within their classrooms. And because I am a birth to 21 teacher, and I've done the required research for expanding my license, I'm very aware of what a 5th grader knows and understands. I can't prove that to you in 3 minutes, but I can assure you that every 5th grader knows something about this. They recognize faces. Even if you have a child who's cognitively delayed, they understand some piece of this. You as school board members need to be responsible to the curriculum. This is a statewide recognized curriculum. It's CDC guidance. This is you. This is you. Each one of you. You own this, and you need to support these kids. I've worked with students from Lifehouse. I get this. You guys need to be responsible to this. Thank you.
Kind of feel like Tim Conway and his old man character here. Time didn't start yet, did it? Oh, it did. Okay. My name is Kyle Smith. I've been teaching in the district for 25 years. Looking forward to my 26th year of teaching. Proud member of this district. I'm also a proud member of the Superior Federation of Teachers, currently acting as president. And I'm here today to show our support. Our union is affiliated with the American Federation of Teachers, a union of professionals. Part of AFT's mission statement relevant to this issue is that it's a union of professionals that champion fairness, democracy, and high-quality education. I'm here tonight to show that the Superior Federation of Teachers support the DPI's Human Growth and Development curriculum in conjunction with Superintendent Starzecki, as well as the professionals of the committee and their decision to include high-quality public education to keep the disputed part of the Human Growth and Development curriculum as is. As a union of professionals, we support these professionals when it comes to this curriculum. We also support the teachers in this district that are going to be teaching this curriculum, and most importantly, we support the students, because all means all. Personally, when I was here on the August 8th meeting, as obviously everyone here was, listening to speaker after speaker, I was taken aback when at least one speaker discussed this portion of the curriculum as a way of indoctrination and proselytizing a certain message or belief. I think the message, and many have said today, that the message for these students, especially in 5th grade, is that for students to understand why students may identify as a different gender, or why someone may use a different pronoun, and that students may do this and understand that it's okay, and that these students should not be bullied or be feared, and let everyone be educated of why they make these decisions. So again, tonight here as a representative of the Superior Federation of Teachers to show support for keeping this Human Growth and Development curriculum intact as stated. Thank you.
Hello, board members and everyone who's here today. My name is Joe Thompson. I am a parent of 4. 3 of our kids attend the Superior Cooper Elementary School, and 1 is going to 6th grade. I am a nurse, a registered nurse by profession, and I'd like to speak to that. And obviously I'm here in support of the opt-in option. And I think most of the speakers today are beating around the bush when we talk about the transgender. I do not have a problem with the LGBTQ as a whole. But when we speak about the transgender movement, we are talking about something that's theoretical in the sense that there's not a human being here today who would say they have ever created a life. So we talk about bullying, we talk about people not being comfortable or accepted. But here's a problem I have. Each and every one of us here was created. You were needed in your mother's womb. You didn't have a choice whether if you are a boy or a girl. You were made that way. So the fact that someone can think of a thing and believe then it is a reality, I want to make it a reality, it's a bigger problem. Everyone here, I would believe or think, believes in gravity. I mean, if you don't think so, just get on a 6-foot building, a skyscraper, and try jumping off that. And you realize gravity is real. So the point I'm trying to make is that the way we were created is a boy, a girl, a man, and a woman. Whatever you think about that doesn't change the fact. And the fact that people would go through this change, the fact that you feel through some medical procedure, you get a part removed. For instance, I started working in a hospital. We have people who have had hysterectomy, where you take the ovaries out and the fallopian tube because of ovarian cancer or cervical cancer. A woman who has breast cancer, you have mastectomy. Not once do you ever suggest that person is of a different sex because those parts have been moved. And that is a disease. So I'm begging everyone who is sitting here today that at the end of the day, you have to face what a reality is. And that is, no matter how I feel up here, does not detect who I am. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Dorothy Walden. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a proud SHS graduate of 1980. I want to thank you as school board members. It takes commitment to work to make your community schools better, to put your time and efforts into making schools a safe place for everyone to learn and grow. It's been well established that safety and security are essential before learning can take place. A sense of belonging is part of that foundation. To belong, people must feel seen and accepted as they are. As a wise person has said, trust others to know themselves, respect their identities and humanity. Bigotry as policy has no place in a society that should be aspiring to greatness. The great poet laureate Maya Angelou said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Better means more respect, more inclusion, and more understanding, not less. Support this curriculum that helps gender nonconforming people feel seen and understood. Support it for all students so that they can grow to understand others. I encourage you to accept the superintendent's decision and retain curriculum materials explaining the importance of personal pronouns and gender identity. Thank you.
It's kind of muffled. Oh, they're coming. Okay. Just the enunciation, I'm having a hard time, but sorry, it's working.
Hi, my name is Jenna Halverson. I teach the public school kids for the religious ed program at Cathedral. I support an opt-in decision. And I also like the idea of sending supplemental materials for parents so that they can guide their kids. Are fifth graders mature for this curriculum? Fifth graders are still learning how to separate fact from opinion. Because the videos only share one viewpoint, they will believe the gender identity idea is a fact when it is not, and will be greatly misled in their thoughts and behaviors. Even if more materials such as other theories were added, they would still struggle with knowing what is fact and what is an opinion between those. So this teaching is better for older grades. As the appeal side states, fifth graders have not mastered abstract thinking. One video states, gender, how you feel and know yourself to be, tells you who you are. And biological sex, what they can see, does not always. This is confusing for kids because they have to disregard what they see, and their brain may not have the power to do that. And if kids keep changing pronouns, their peers will only be confused more, or they will get the idea that there is no physical anchor, that they can be whatever they want to be based only on what they feel. If kids believe in this idea that they can change their pronoun and therefore biological sex and change at any time depending on how they feel, kids will copy other kids, especially if their friends do it or they want to be friends with certain people. Kids who are unhappy or in a vulnerable state may transition because they see others getting attention from it. Kids tend to make quick decisions with their highly reactive emotional brain, making decisions that will give them the most reward and acceptance. If we affirm those who have an underlying mental health issue in their transition, they have the risk of making a bodily transition, getting hormones, surgery, which lead to infertility, health risks, and possible regret when they become an adult. Journalist Schreier researched to see why there was a huge 1,000% increase in female teens coming out as trans in the last decade in the US, when it used to be more so in young males. In her book, she shares 65% of teen girls became trans from social media. If our kids are confused or want to learn more about what they learned in this curriculum, they are one click away from YouTube, Tumblr, TikTok. When they type in gender identity or what does they mean, kids will be bombarded by all sorts of different ideas, which can influence their behaviors. In 40% of these female groups, at least half came out as trans.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Holden Kaufman. My pronouns are she, her. And for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm about to start my 18th school year in this district as an educator. Most of my career has been here in my hometown, teaching high school English and communication, coaching academic activities, and volunteering as the GSA advisor. Around 2014, I was asked as a GSA advisor to help with the Wiley or Wellness in Youth grant, which, as I understand it, our district received not because of our accomplishments, but because of the disparity in outcomes across straight and cisgender students in comparison to their LGBTQ peers. Since then, this board has helped the district make great strides toward providing health education that represents our students, families, and community. The updates that have been made to the health and human growth and development curriculum, including those to these challenged grade 5 lessons, are in line with national and state standards and guidelines. They are in line with what we understand today about sex and gender. They align with current practices in acknowledging people using pronouns, and they should remain in place. Many people have been involved in creating this HGD curriculum, including parents, teachers, clergy, board members, and other community members. I was taught in college that education should provide windows and mirrors for our students, allowing them to see themselves and also to view new perspectives through their learning. Realizing that you are not alone, seeing where you fit, and having your identity validated is life-saving. These grade 5 lessons better help represent all students' identities, and they will help 5th graders grow into strong middle schoolers who will become high schoolers and eventually adults. You have heard some of their stories here tonight. When we know better, we do better, and we know that young people need reliable, accurate information about their bodies and minds. Today, we know more than our own teachers did, so we must do better. To change our path based on anything other than new, vetted research would not benefit our youth and instead set a dangerous precedent for our school district. I am asking that you please uphold Superintendent Starzecki's decision to maintain the current 5th grade HGD curriculum. Thank you.
Diana Otto DePaul.
Hello. Buju, Dijna Kaz, Gitaga, Kunskwen, and Noda Makwa. I said, hello, my name is Cheyenne. I'm an aunt to children who actually attend this school specifically. And I sure hope they're provided with language in their school curriculum that allows them to feel seen, heard, and welcome at every single point in their educational career. I am two-spirited and I'm Indigenous, and I'm super proud of who I am. And before I dig into that, though, I want to recognize the parents that opted out to come and support this for fear that their children would receive repercussions for them speaking out publicly. My niece, whom attends this school, has known that Auntie Shy is going to marry a woman. She's known that I am two-spirited, and she's known that since before the 5th grade, just like I knew I was two-spirited before 5th grade too. She's known that identifying and respecting another person's pronouns is just the right thing to do. She's known that no matter whom an individual loves, no matter how they choose to identify themselves, it's completely acceptable, and furthermore, it's something to be celebrated. Knowing my identity and my pronouns wasn't a form of indoctrination, as people would like to think. It's an act of acceptance, an act of giving space to those who have been historically marginalized. It's showing love for one another in all spaces, and not just because you're feeling uncomfortable, you know? This really isn't complicated. When you have an easy opt-out, attempting to take away the right to feel welcome and safe through the beauty of things like language, despite having that opt-out option, shows your privilege. It definitely shows the comfort of power you're used to having. It shows your morals. It shows the lack of investment you have in the success of our youth. The reality is, when we all do better, we all do better. It's pretty terrifying knowing that there's community members and parents who wish to keep children closed off, while othering and creating inferiority of those who don't fall in line with their heteronormativity. Keeping this inclusive curriculum not only respects all students, it respects our Indigenous culture. Something even the state requires in our school curriculum, even if it is just a 1 to 2 day lesson taught from a white perspective. I was taught to always strive to do the right thing, and I'm sure every single person in this room was taught the same. Now let's do the right thing and keep age-appropriate gender identity curriculum, and anything less than that is an intentional act to limit our children. It's an intentional act to continue to indoctrinate the minds of our children that you so speak of and say that we're doing. I appreciate your time and dedication to the lives of our children, and I only hope you uphold that tonight. Miigwech. Short, sorry. Hi, my name is Kara Downs, and I'm an English teacher here at the high school. And I have been teaching for 15 years now. I'm here to ask you to keep the current HGD curriculum in place because removing or altering it undermines our professionals. In preparing this speech, I thought about various ways in which to approach my argument. I could talk about the excessive bullying of our LGBTQ+ students in the schools. I could talk about the high suicide rates within that community and over the past years within the high school alone. I could talk about the pains and struggles I help many of my LGBTQ+ students through on a daily basis, but I won't. I want to focus on the importance of an evolving curriculum, one that reflects the current world in which we live. I want to focus on trusting our teachers to properly educate our children with care. I want to focus on the dangers and slippery slope that will occur if we allow this curriculum to be removed or altered. I implore you to trust our teachers and administrators and leave this curriculum in place as it is. Let's be a part of the future, not victims of the past. Thank you.
Greg Conley, okay, there we go.
Hello, as you know, my name is Gregory. My pronouns are he, him, and I am in 9th grade at SHS this year. Something I love about the Superior School District so far is its inclusivity and support there is for me and my LGBTQI+ peers. Early education and gender identity would have been very helpful for me because I was very stressed about my identity for a long time. Ever since actually specifically the 5th grade, which sounds fake, but you know what, I'm just gonna keep going with it, but yeah. But but this caused me a lot of anxiety, and I have been struggling with my with depression and anxiety for a very long time, ever since I was like 7. And it really has hurt to be able to see myself be invalidated as such in the around by people. It just really hurts, and it makes me, but this isn't about me. This is about other kids. And I feel like it would be just more, and if I had been taught about this when I was younger, I would not have felt like it was so wrong for me to be who I am. Because of, who I am. And it hurts to see people be treated worse based off of how they feel, and having it be classified as just a phase or something that they will grow out of. Because, I mean, if you really think your child is gullible enough to be able to be convinced that they are one way just by a group of teachers trying to inform them of the facts of their peers, then I feel then maybe you should try to give your child a bit of information on how to treat information. Because, if you can teach your child to be less gullible, that would be great. But I believe in, but you know what? You can do it. Anyways, I do really hope you make the right choice, because, and thank you for listening. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Oh, gosh, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for your time today. I'm actually speaking on behalf of a friend of mine who had COVID, so couldn't be here. So I'm speaking on behalf of Amber Popplewell, the proud parent to Kennedy Popplewell, a citizen of Superior, a proud community member who works in this county, and vice president of the board of directors for the healthcare clinic in Superior and Ashland. You are all tasked with providing the best education, some would even say a superior education, to our children by enabling our administrators, teachers, and staff to deliver the most up-to-date and appropriate curriculum available while following federal guidelines and statutes. This includes things like when a planet changes status, like Pluto, and is no longer recognized as a main celestial body like the other 8 that orbit our sun. I was taught it was a planet when I was growing up, but science and things change. On a more serious note, dating back to 1954 in Brown v. Board of Education, the U.S. Supreme Court determined unanimously that while school segregation was unconstitutional, but in Wisconsin, we failed to acknowledge the order with all deliberate speed. Milwaukee School Board did not come up with a desegregation plan until 1979, 25 years later. We will not go back to old patterns of behavior because we are afraid of progress and change. Just like science, social constructs change. Teaching our students about the science of gender identity and expression, which is a federally protected class, just like those of race, religion, origin, and ability, is your job. The purpose of a public education is not just to teach what our parents want our kids to know, it is what society needs them to know. The client of the public school is not the parent, but the entire community, the public. Our policy is clear. These folks may exercise free choice and opt their children out, but I hold you all responsible for the rest, which is science, education, progress, and standing with our educators. Now, on my own behalf, I would like to say this. Let's talk about science for a second. For those who would tell you that it's merely a theory, I would pose to you that all science is based in theory. Gravity was once a theory. Atoms, particles, chemicals, they were all theories once. It is literally a part of the scientific process. Theory, fiat, problem, hypothesis, experiment, observation, conclusion. So to say that this is not scientific is a misunderstanding of how science works. And we must understand that psychology is a science. Sociology is a science. There's a scientific process to everything taught to children, and science changes, learns, and grows. This curriculum has been studied, evaluated, and gone through rigorous vetting. It is supported by the people who are experts in our community as a whole, the teachers, administrators, and counselors who every day spend all day with our students, not just yours. The reason it is not taught alongside other theories, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name's Kennedy Popwell. I'm a sophomore at Superior High School, and my pronouns are she, they. I made an appearance twice in front of this board, so hopefully third time's a charm. Today, I'd like to talk about my personal experiences growing up and not fitting in the box society has created for men and women. Before I'd like to start, I'd like to mention that this is a public school. It is public. And if you don't want to send your kids here because of this curriculum, there's private schools around. I've been picked on since I was a little girl. I've been harassed, bullied, stared at, and argued with due to the way that I present myself. My first time I stood in front of this board, I was 9 years old. 9. And I was begging my teachers at the age of 9 because I didn't understand why I was being treated differently because of how I look. I spent countless of hours crying to my mom because I didn't understand why adults could treat a little girl like this. My mom has been my biggest ally since day one. Growing up, I've been spanked and screamed at by my father because I wouldn't wear a dress to a church that didn't accept me for who I was and because I had short hair. School is especially hard for me. Every year, I have to constantly worry about if my teachers will accept me for who I am. Especially substitute teachers. That's a horror story. Teachers and staff struggle on a daily basis to make our school a safe place for all. So why should we leave our students out? Why should we take away important information for our students? Especially the hate I've experienced has increased my mental health problems. Same with so many other students. I'm a survivor of suicide. I've tried multiple times. And the hate that I've experienced, it's increased that. It has increased my suicidal thoughts, which does not increase our school's suicidal rates that we care about so much. So why should we take this lesson away? Why should we take this education away? Why should we keep these students who want to express themselves hidden in a closet? Why should we do that? There's no point. We're not hiding religion. We're not hiding anything else. We're not hiding beliefs.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Jordan. I'm a father of 5 children in the school district. I have 2 in high school, 1 in the middle school, and 2 in elementary school. I am also a registered nurse and have had the privilege to work the last 7.5 years with both adolescent and adult mental health patients. I have been able to take care of thousands of individuals who have struggled with both depression, suicide, and gender dysphoria. While each situation was unique and every individual, one thing made every situation similar was that they had an emotional or feeling-based thinking that directly contributed to their illogical behaviors, of self-harm and suicidal attempts. My colleagues and I have worked tirelessly to try to teach individuals coping skills of particularly wise mind and able to use logical thinking along with emotional thinking instead of completely basing their feelings or decisions off of just their feelings. When I heard that there was this new gender identity curriculum, I was very curious to know and understand what exactly was being taught. I took the time to watch these videos several times, and I found it very extremely confusing. They discussed that someone would identify by their bodily organs when they're born, but then it said that this is wrong, and that they can only be determined their gender by what they feel. It also discussed the pronouns of they and them, and not that one should assume what they wish to be called. I have three concerns with this curriculum. One is that there seems to be an attempt to change what kids are being taught of pronouns of they and them, which can be very confusing, particularly with fifth graders, when they're being taught on he, she, in their sentence structure, but then they're now that's singular, and now they have they, them, which is supposed to be plural. Secondly, my concern is that this education is not fact-based, but rather it is a belief-based. It is a select group of people that have a belief that they are now saying that feel is fact. As far as I understand, a belief system is a form of religion, and it's supposed to be, and it's not supposed to be influentially teaching our kids as fact. With the fact that fifth graders and being very impressionable and educating that the sole belief is based on belief, not on science, it should not be in our public school system. And my third concern, and my most disheartening one, as a mental health care RN and teaching, being taught, or having these children teaching a feeling-based mindset to identify and making their life choices is directly linked with suicide, depression, and gender dysphoria. These mental illnesses have been increasingly devastating in our community, and I urge you to consider taking this appeal seriously and agree to remove this from the curriculum from our elementary schools. Thank you.
Hello, I share the same 5 children as Brian. So I'm a mom in the district. I have 5 kids. I've spent the last 17 years here either volunteering, teaching, or in parenting. Please know, Gregory, wherever you are, Gregory, that I truly love and respect all families, and I wish that you all find the support that you need to succeed in life and in school and to feel safe. I think there's some confusion about what indoctrination meant, so here's the definition. It's the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. That's what it means. So I observed the GI curriculum being taught in 5th grade, and what I saw concerned me because students are being told to accept a set of beliefs that they are not male or female based on their anatomy. Doctors label them at birth, and that their true gender is what they feel on the inside. There was no chance given them to question this information. They were persuaded to believe it as fact and encouraged to stand up against anyone who told them differently. That's what indoctrination is. And it goes against the board's own policy, which says that controversial material cannot be taught if it persuades students to a particular point of view or set of beliefs. And I think that is what this problem is about. It's not about not accepting people or their differences or supporting them in school or in life. It's about forcing a set of beliefs that are not common to everybody in the district. When I brought my concerns to the board, the administration told me that the board had set the policy for teaching the human growth and development curriculum and that it was in alignment with state and federal law. But when I looked into it, I found out that not all of the board members were even aware that the GI curriculum had been implemented in 5th grade, which was bizarre. And there aren't any laws at all requiring it to be in 5th grade. The DPI doesn't speak about it in 5th grade either. The administration was not at all transparent with me or even with each other, and it broke my trust in them as a parent. So in regards to opting out, I know several parents who didn't even know that this was in their children's curriculum. I've met other parents who had opted out, but the material was taught in the general classroom anyway, and I brought fifth graders into the classroom to learn it when their parents had opted out, but nobody told me that as a guest teacher. So that's unacceptable. So those are the reasons to remove the curriculum. It violates our policy. It does not represent every family. There's no law to govern it, and the integrity of the opt-out option is faulty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sally Anderson. I'm a longtime resident of Superior, mother of 2 adult children who attended and graduated from Superior High School. I'm also a grandmother of 3 and retired clinical social worker who practiced almost 30 years in a child and adolescent mental health inpatient and outpatient settings. I worked with many kids who experienced anxiety, depression, and suicide ideation for feeling different. This impacted their school performance, and as well as school attendance. Since retirement, I have also volunteered in the Superior School System in the rolling reading program in grades K through 3, and I was always amazed at the insight of these young children and how knowledgeable they really were. I am here tonight to ask board members to continue the 5th grade curriculum on gender identity. When I first heard about this, I emailed all board members and did not realize at that time that there was an opt-out option. Since then, I have listened to the August 8th meeting twice, watched the materials in question, reviewed the 30-page complaint, as well as the sources that were cited there. I've also consulted with a local child psychologist who has worked many years with children and adolescents. She said she could see both sides, but feels that if it is done in an educational manner and supports the well-being of the child and is child-centered, it should be done and presented. She said, keep it child-centered, and she understands that parents worry that their child will want to be another gender, which is not true. Solutions on the complaint suggested the golden rule and judicious use of discipline to deal with students who are bullying others. We can all agree on the golden rule, but detention and suspension will not solve the behavior. Too often, bullying is very subtle and under the breath, as one person said. At the end of 5th grade, I feel is a good time for this instruction. It gives the students a year of development and catches them before middle school, which is so peer influenced. A big part of the complaint is the age appropriateness. I don't think we give our kids credit for what they deserve. Students know well before 5th grade these issues. I strongly feel what happens in our community affects our community. Or what happens in our school affects our community as well. I ask you tonight to please support continuing 5th grade curriculum with the opt-out option. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Diana Brooks. This time I did sign up. Last time I said I didn't sign up because I didn't know I was going to speak, but I appreciate the time for you to listen to me. I thank you for everybody that is here. We're all here for a purpose, whether we agree with each other or not. Somebody was talking about the dictionary. So the Merriam word of the day is overwhelmed. It says what it means. Overwhelm typically means to overpower in thought or feeling, or to overcome by superior force or numbers. It can also mean to submerge, to cover, or completely, or to overturn or upset. I would hope that tonight that you just are not overwhelmed by all the rhetoric that is spoken, regardless of the support or non-support. I ask that you objectively listen to the appeal. Last time I told you my son left for the Marines. He was someone who stood up to the bullies. He stood up for everybody. If anybody in this room knew him, they would say the same. Nobody got left behind. And I also, today is my daughter's 24th birthday. She would not be here if it wasn't for the support. At one point in time, she was bullied in school. She wanted to play hockey. The girls went to a point of even making a video and sending it to her. I walked in and watched her crying, listening to this video. This was in this public school. These kids were in the school. I went to the teachers. I went to the administration at that time. I did not ask them to change the curriculum because it begins with me. I am her parent. I'm responsible for her, and I'm responsible to teach her what it means to be okay with who you are, whether you want to play hockey or not. She's a mom of 2 children, but I can say today I'm grateful because she was suicidal. And if it hadn't been for the interaction I had and just to explain to her what it is that regardless of who you are, and again, regardless of who you are, we're all human beings in this room. We all have the ability to look at each other and to be kind to one another. And it doesn't take a 30-minute curriculum to do that. And if you're going to tell me that it's going to change this whole trajectory, then what I'm going to say is allow people to opt in then. If they choose to do so, then opt in rather than opt out. What that does is when you tell somebody to opt out, go walk away. But if you tell somebody they can opt in, then they choose to do so. Options and choice, objectives are the things that are being talked about tonight. And I ask that you to look at that and to look at the expectation and the responsibility. If we assume that all of you here are going to make life different for every person in this room, and it's your obligation, and you have to do that no matter what, that is just not correct, and it's not accurate. You are no more responsible for my children than I am in telling them that they have to do this. You guys, for us to say that if you don't do this, if you move forward, and if these children are affected, if you say no or say yes, that's putting too much of a responsibility on each and every one of you sitting up there. We as parents and we as society have the ability to change.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the obligation. This is the expectation to have this happen.
Lee Sandock Baker.
I am Lee Sandock Baker. I am the parent of a student who will go into 5th grade at Northern Lights Elementary School this fall. And one of the things that has come up into my mind as I listen to so many people talking is that I keep hearing about people talking about facts, as if transgender people don't exist. It's not controversial that they exist. We send our children to public school for a comprehensive education. This includes a comprehensive, relevant, age-appropriate human growth and development curriculum. We all encounter people in our daily lives with a variety of gender identities, and to ignore that fact within our schools is to do a disservice to our children who by 5th grade are really starting to notice these qualities and think about their own identities and how they fit into this big world. And isn't this exactly what we want for our children to be comfortable enough to talk with us about this type of thing? For them to have the words to express accurately their questions and their concerns and their opinions? Providing this curriculum in our schools to our 5th graders creates a kind of a soft starting point for these important conversations we all need to be having with our kids. It's about how they treat themselves, and it's about how they treat others. So please deny this appeal and keep this curriculum in the school system as it is.
Sue Nash.
Hi, everybody.
I made some quick notes, so I'm going to read them to you because they come from my heart. This is a very personal issue for me. It's also one that I deal with professionally quite often. When this topic came up, I could only consider the cringe factor that I thought this will affect our LGBTQIA community negatively by just the mere discussion of tonight's topic. By discussing not acknowledging someone's identity with a simple show of respect, their identifying pronoun. Gender and sexuality are not binary. Science shows us the best way to prevent self-harm, suicide, is to show support for gender and sexual minority youth. Growing up is tough enough. Let's celebrate our individuality, not drive anyone to despair. This is a topic I cannot turn away from. Please don't let fear of differences hurt one more struggling youth. Keeping our kids ignorant of the real world will not stop real life from happening. Please, let's show our support. Let's be inclusive and respectful of all. Educate, not deny. The alternative is not seeing our kids, to not seeing our kids is to make them invisible. How harmful is it to make a child invisible? To not acknowledge their very existence. Thank you.
Thank you. On the grid. Jeanette, we'll go with that.
Gilda La Madrid. I'm Jeanette Gilda La Madrid, and I have two children who graduated from senior high. And believe me, it takes real courage to stand up again after the reception I got the last time I spoke. But, and I said something incorrectly, and I should apologize for that, because I said that studies have shown that people with gender dysphoria, if left alone, will resolve the issue. What I should have said is that most people with gender dysphoria, like 90%, will, it will resolve as they grow in maturity. But the other thing I want to say is, some seem to be thinking that we're asking for this to be taken out of the school. That's not true. Just out of the elementary school, so that kids have a chance to mature, be able to question. And my heart goes out to Gregory and to Kennedy. There are real issues that can be still addressed by teachers. Kids can still be taught to be kind, that we're all different. But, you know, I'm old enough to know, I mean, for 60 years ago, people were bullied in school, and it had nothing to do with this topic. That's just part, I think, of growing up, and you learn to consider the source. You learn to say, well, that's not how I think, that's not how I feel, and that's okay. And so I want to just say that, take it out of that age group to an older, where they can maybe look at things, question things in a little more mature way. I guess the last thing I want to say is I would encourage you all to read the book by Abigail Schreier, who has looked at a lot of things and has said, what's coming down the road is a very scary situation of people who've had surgeries that have mutilated their bodies, and then they're starting to sue schools and counselors and doctors.
Thank you. Haley.
Hi, my name is Haley Gronquist. I am a 2016 graduate of Superior. I'm here to talk again today why I think it's so important to keep the gender identity discussion in the 5th grade classrooms. When reading through the appeal, I saw a few times that we should just continue to teach the golden rule. You know, be kind to others, they'll be kind back. Well, I want to tell a personal story that I haven't told a lot of people before, and now I'm going to tell a whole room. I went to school when that's what was taught, as I assume most of the people in this room have. And I was made fun of occasionally throughout my time in school. Some would tease me because my father was gay. Some would laugh because I wore basketball shorts and boy shoes. Others would say that they thought I was a lesbian, so they couldn't have sleepovers with me. And I still remember the names of each one that ever said that to me. It was those same kids who were taught the golden rule and kindness that outed me to my family my senior year of high school 7 years ago this month. Throughout that time, those same group of people called me the F slur throughout my time, my senior year of high school, and I did everything I could to just be as nice as them so they wouldn't tell my peers and tell more people. I'm lucky, and I still am lucky. I have friends and family who accept me for who I am and whatever I decide to be in life. But that's not the case for everyone. It's not the case for a lot of families. It could have been such a dangerous position for me to be in, to come home from school and have my parents know, like, that could have just been really bad. Not only is it dangerous for the students who are trying to figure out how they feel, and then have parents' pressures, classmate pressures. It doesn't matter if it's sexual identity, or sexual orientation or gender identity. It goes around for everything. If more kids continue to learn just how harmful their words would be and that they can accept kids for what they are, then maybe we would avoid more of these situations. I'm sorry, but 5th graders do not have the same mean judgments that all of us do in this room. And if they do, you taught it to them. If your child walks out of this 30 minutes of class and thinks to themselves, maybe I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, they felt that way before they walked in. They just didn't know how to tell you. I'm fully aware that a good chunk of people in this room will never understand why this topic is so important, and that's fine. But you should be thankful that you never have to wonder how we feel. You will never have to question if you will be judged for who you love, how you dress, what bathroom you use, and if you're safe to dress how you want. In conclusion, I think removing the curriculum is an insanely massive step back. 30 parents don't speak for the vast majority of the public. You can opt out of the curriculum for a reason. Thank you.
Rachel Ursine.
Hi, my name is Rachel Ursine. I have a daughter going into 5th grade at Great Lakes. I am a speech therapist. I've been a speech therapist for 16 years. I've worked in the medical field and I currently work at a neighboring school district. I consider myself a Christian and I am asking the district to please keep it as it is with an opt-out option. This is not a new topic. When I was in college in 2001, we learned about transgender. We had to learn how to do therapy with transgender adults. This was news to me, coming from Superior. I went to a Catholic junior high that did not teach any sex education. Kids were having sex in 8th grade, people. When you teach kids, it opens questions. You don't have to know everything about it. I don't know everything. I'm still learning. But when you open the door, there's questions. There's still going to be bullying. A child will find something to bully you about no matter what. But you have to start from somewhere. and not starting and blocking it says we don't acknowledge these people. We don't acknowledge this population. 5th grade is such a crucial time, and not acknowledging them it's wrong. So I ask you to please continue with this, and thank you.
Adrian? Is it Adrian?
I'm Adrian.
Adrian, okay. Was this Gledhill?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, can I go ahead? Oops. Hi, I'm Adrian. I have 2 kids in the school district. I also just want to give a little background that I was raised by a lesbian and I have trans family. I'd also like to put out there that I 100% understand body dysmorphia and bullying because my entire life I've been overweight, and I know that they're going to say, oh, that's not the same, but I was hounded, harassed, I was followed every single day until the day that I stood up to my bullies and said, enough is enough. I am not what you're saying, and I love myself. And I'll go back into that in a minute, but I'd like to say too that I can empathize with having changes to your body. I had gastric bypass to help me lose weight and get a better body image. And I can tell you that I still think I'm fat. And I'd like to use the same logic here that, well, if everybody just told me I'm skinny, maybe I would start feeling skinny. And I can tell you that for me, that's not true. It doesn't matter how much weight I lose. It doesn't no matter how many surgeries I have. I will always feel that I am less than other people because I've always been overweight. I'd like to use the same logic too with, well, if we would then just teach all the kids not to bully fat people and that fat is acceptable and we give them a lesson on overweightness and autoimmune disease and all that, then that'll stop the bullying. And unfortunately, it won't. So I'd like to go into some things. I would like to say that I do believe that all humans deserve love and respect, but I also believe that respect doesn't mean that we all have to have the same beliefs. It doesn't mean that we all have to join in on the same beliefs. We should be respectful of the fact that we are all different. I'd like to go into the age appropriateness. I come from a very progressive family. I have spoke with my kids early on, asked them questions. I've learned that you need to just kind of feel them out. You don't give them more than what they're asking for, and you just be open about it. They've been around my trans family. They've been around all this, and they, at 5th grade, are not okay with this material. And my son told me that when the kids got out of the class that they were like, what is this? It was not appropriate. This is very controversial. As far as opt-out, I'd like to tell you that parents were shocked and saddened. They had no idea that this was happening. As far as bullying, let's practice what we're preaching because there's been a lot of bullying that we are forced to go along with this, even if we have different beliefs. So let's stop bullying. Oh, I have so much to say. I think that we should remove this from elementary. There should be an opt-in, provide additional information to send it home. And number 1, let's teach our kids resiliency. There's going to be bullying about differences, autism, overweightness, being poor, having terrible clothes, having purple hair, whatever. They're all just going to be mean. And what we need to do is teach these kids to be secure in who they are. And that, again, we should love and respect all kids. This isn't about that. So thank you.
No? Okay, Tim Jensen is saying no. It's passing. All right, so that concludes the public comment. Before we go into review of the curriculum complaint, take a 5-minute.
Look at me, you're in charge.
If everybody okay with there's a 5-minute recess for bathroom break? You guys all right with that? All right, we're going to take 5 minutes. Not yet, about 7.
Hands are and my nose is hurting. Oh, shit. I do need to stand up.
Hey, Brett.
I hear you.
Would you like your at minute mark?
Thank you. I was going to ask you.
5 minutes?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
I think it'll be all fine, but, Ryan, I was gonna ask you as well, when it comes to my turn to present, I'll just need that. I'll need this here. This one, right? Or can we?
TVJRs.
Is that the TV?
Yeah.
Is that enough room if we just slide it out to the side?
Is it possible to do it? Yeah, I'll let you type it.
Yeah, this one is
What's up?
online presence.
Yep.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Gallagher. I know she did. I know, I was looking at the computer and he was the best part was that no, you did it. And then I was like,
Is this okay?
and then I was like, could you read the ring?
Should I have just said, like, I was like, should I just say here?
I was like, I don't think I knew. No, she did that. I was about to say something and then you figured it out.
There you go. So I just muted it now, so.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm sorry.
All you need just to clarify was me to, here and you want the PowerPoint. Correct? All right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, maybe an inappropriate time you're there.
Slideshow and then it.
Yep.
It's all right. I was like, I don't know if she can cook her egg though, so that's why I didn't say, that's why I didn't say here, but I could have.
How could you like this at me and I'm like.
I think I cited.
Well, every meeting, I think we've been in a different order, so I'm like, I don't know.
That's what they do. That's on purpose. That's on
We
purpose. Rotated every time. Yeah, because you don't want to, I don't know what that's a intentional.
Okay.
So yeah. We'll laugh about this.
Yes, we will. Sorry, just at this major one, right?
I think it will come up as.
Gonna
Ryan, I turned it on.
I just ended up that way. Luck of the draw.
All right, at this time, we're going to have the review of curriculum complaint regarding the gender identity curriculum material, starting out with the presentation by the petitioner.
Oh, Laura's back there.
I thought it was Joe Thompson, but.
Okay, just test. There we go. Yep. Great. Well, hello, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. My name is Brett Jones, and I'm part of the Concerned Parents group, and I was asked to speak on their behalf. I'll be the sole presenter today for them. Okay. I am an educator and have taught in higher education for over 20 years in the public schools for 3. As you may recall, I spoke at the last meeting during the public comment section and even requested and was kindly granted by you all a little additional time to speak. Thank you. Yet in the end, I still had more to say. So you can only imagine that when members of the parents group asked me to speak tonight, they enticed me with telling me that I would get a whole 30 minutes of microphone time. Given my deep love for speaking in tense settings like this, how could I refuse that offer? So, all joking aside, I truly appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. I would like to first thank you all for serving in this capacity for our community. It's a difficult job, I know, and I know you're not in it for the money, and neither are the many educators that have spoken tonight and that are teaching in our schools. You serve out of a love for students and to help make our community a better place. For that, we thank you. This evening, I'd like to expound upon some of the parents' concerns and even offer possible solutions that, if adopted, we believe would be unifying to our community and beneficial to our students. During the public comment period at the last meeting, I heard some very inspiring comments from both sides about caring for the LGBTQIA students, about concerns for their mental health, and agreement that they should in no way be bullied. I found those comments and reflections quite unifying and frankly, inspiring from a human perspective. But when the members of the parents group asked me to present today, I felt like it didn't make sense. Now, I do live in the Superior area and I do have school-aged children. I'm also a citizen who cares very much about our community, and as an educator, I care about the quality of public education in our school district. I didn't think it made sense for me to speak, though, because my wife and I have chosen to homeschool our children. When I pressed the parent group further on this, I found out that the main reason they requested I speak on their behalf was due to the hate that they have endured since the last meeting and fear of future backlash. To be blunt, social media erupted with efforts to deride and silence them. I found that terribly disheartening and even tragic. I guess I had hoped that after the last meeting, though both sides might disagree on this particular curriculum, we were unified on civility, acceptance of others who live and think differently than we do, and unilaterally opposed to bullying. I've read some of these terribly disheartening comments aimed at the parents who raised legitimate concerns regarding their children's education. I was truly appalled to see that fellow community members who seem so committed to inclusion and acceptance of others in the schools were not committed to that in their own lives. Instead, they actively mocked, pressured, disparaged, and derided those parents who spoke honestly and presented their concerns with respect. Sadly, this list included not only community members, but current and former school district employees as well. These respectful parents, because they are invested and engaged in their children's education, have raised concerns about introducing this contentious gender identity curriculum into the elementary grades. I know that our district proudly emphasizes that all means all. However, the messages that I saw were those of bullies. This curriculum saves lives. If any of you vote to alter it, you are complicit. The messages were exclusive. We don't want your kids around ours anyway. Do the rest of us a favor and please send them to private schools. Keep the curriculum and have your children attend religious schools if you want to keep them indoctrinated and living in the 50s. And the messages were disparaging. It's honestly really emotionally traumatic when they have to deal with awful bigoted little turds who've been conditioned by their parents to be hateful, ignorant bullies. What the parent group is proposing is absolutely disgusting. I feel bad for their kids. Reading these harmful comments aloud actually reminds me that we, as adults, must put our biases aside to set an example for our children and our students. Friends and fellow community members, we all need to reject bullying and derision. We need to seek love and forgiveness, peace and harmony. Friends, we need to start that today. We live in a pluralistic society, and we have many differences. But that doesn't mean that we can't practice what we preach and rededicate ourselves to a loving and accepting treatment of all. When we stop dividing and excluding, our all can truly mean all. And then, and only then, will our public schools unite us. Members of the school board, the concerned parents are making a simple request regarding a small part of the 5th grade Human Growth and Development Unit, specifically the section on gender identity and expression. We request that this controversial curriculum be moved from the elementary school. As we will soon illustrate, this recently approved curriculum does not belong in these grade levels. Other possible solutions are to offer a parent and guardian approval process with an opt-in approach, like has been previously used, or to provide parents and guardians with supplemental take-home materials for them to discuss with the students in their care, sensitive of their emotional well-being. Though moving the curriculum from the elementary school is the approach that is most clearly aligned with district policy, making the materials opt-in or supplemental could be a workable solution given the controversial nature of this topic. Given the Superior School District Policy 2240 pertaining to controversial issues in the classroom, and most recently revised in 2008, it is clear that leaving the curriculum as it currently stands does not meet the requirements defined in our governing district policy. District Policy 2240 defines a controversial issue as, quote, a topic on which opposing points of view have been promulgated by responsible opinion or is likely to arouse both support and opposition in the community, end quote. Members of the board, is a contentious one. Certainly, it's a controversial one that has aroused both support and opposition in the community. We wouldn't be here today with such abundant and emotional community input on both sides of this short elementary curriculum if it wasn't a controversial one. The social media backlash aimed at parents contesting this curriculum wouldn't be happening if it wasn't a controversial issue. In fact, this is currently a controversial issue in many school districts around the country. By any reasonable measure, this curricular topic fulfills the board's definition of a controversial issue. This indeed might be actually the least controversial thing said this evening. Therefore, we must move forward for Superior School District Policy 2240 with approaching this as a controversial issue, one that has recently been added to the Human Growth and Development Unit and requires great sensitivity. District policy clearly dictates an approach that must be adhered to in such cases as this. There are 3 main requirements, all of which must be met for this instructional program to be used. So looking at the policy, District Policy 2240 states that the board will permit the introduction and proper educational use of controversial issues, provided that their use in the instructional program, A, is related to the instructional goals of the course of study and level of maturity of the students. B, does not tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. And C, encourages open-mindedness and is conducted in a spirit of scholarly inquiry. Please keep in mind that all of these need to be met to make the controversial issue part of the curriculum. We will soon know if the curriculum committee, having done its due diligence by respectfully weighing the concerns previously brought forward by the concerned parents, are prepared to address each one of these points in their upcoming presentation. The curriculum committee's defense of how this instructional program fulfills each one of these three requirements will, of course, be essential to their case. Defense that must show how the safeguards presented in District Policy 2240 are fully met. However, given the curriculum in question, the parent group believes that not one of the three requirements is fully met. First, we must ask ourselves if the materials are related to the instructional goals of the course of study. We believe that, in general, they are, and we don't wish to contest that at all. Then we must next ask ourselves if the materials are related to the level of maturity of the students. But to this point, we fear the curriculum committee has made an unfortunate oversight in selecting this curriculum. The curriculum presents to fifth graders the concept of gender identity, one's self-asserted status as male, female, both, neither, or something else. It is a subjective self-identification, not based on physical evidence or biological fact, but based on what is known as gender theory. This is a theory most recently refined by University of California, Berkeley philosophy professor Judith Butler, who claims that gender is a social construct. It's important to note that the gender identity language presented in the curriculum is largely based on gender theory. This theory, however, is not settled science. In the first source shown on our slide, you can read how two leading clinical scientists, Drs. Mayer and McHugh, explain in their important paper on this topic that some of the most frequent claims about sexuality and gender are indeed not supported by scientific evidence. The theory is also rejected by many experts in the field of psychology, including Dr. Michael Mascolo, who explains the inherent flaws with these ideas of gender identity in his peer-reviewed article in Psychology Today that outlines the logical contradictions of gender theory. Though these theories are being debated by doctors, philosophers, and professors in the most elite educational institution, there is no unified adherence to this very abstract concept. Further, it directly contradicts the principles of materialism that are foundational for public, non-sectarian education. In addition to the science not being settled, opposing theories surrounding sex and gender are entirely abstract. It is not appropriate to expect a 10-year-old whose prefrontal cortex is less than half developed to understand these abstract theories. As shown on the slide, we can see from recent research that more and more is known about the brain development and how it might pertain to educational settings. We should not be surprised by this, as Cincinnati Children's Hospital child specialists illustrate how 8 to 10-year-old children, quote, struggle with understanding abstract or hypothetical concepts, end quote. They further note that, quote, children ages 6 to 12 usually think in concrete ways, end quote. This curriculum does not present concrete concepts that would be fitting for elementary students, but rather ones that require abstract reasoning skills, skills that, according to psychologists, these students generally do not have. We can see that this, one, is not settled science, and two, is too abstract to be appropriate for the maturity level of fifth graders. Next, in District Policy 2240, letter B, we see that a controversial issue must not tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. According to Merriam-Webster, indoctrinate means, quote, to imbue with a usually partisan or sectarian opinion, point of view, or principle, end quote. And persuade means to, quote, move by argument, entreaty, or expostulation to a belief, position, or course of action, end quote. We have already discussed that there are multiple theories of understanding of sex and gender. Yet we can see that the curricular materials present only gender identity as found in gender theory, a philosophical concept often presented by activist groups. The language being used, for example, gender is feeling and knowing, and the body parts you were born with don't always dictate who you are phrases that are based on Judith Butler's understanding of gender. In this curriculum, these ideas are presented as truths, though they are not at all universally held. In so doing, the curriculum attempts to persuade students into a belief or position regarding gender identity. Where I teach in higher education, we would call this academic dishonesty. Presenting as a truth something that is debatable, one-sided, and in this instance, not settled science. Further, one of the videos was produced by the Human Rights Equity Access Team, a special interest group that has created videos encouraging young children to accept abstract concepts like gender theory and intersectionality, concepts that are currently being promoted by numerous activist groups. This video encourages language that specifically adheres to gender identity concepts. Since only one side of the gender identity is presented by this curriculum, there is no way that an elementary age student can critically discern various viewpoints surrounding this topic. Sadly, this chosen curriculum is one-sided, it's favoritist, and it does not present a balanced view on the subject matter. Where there's no intellectual balance, the result can be nothing other than persuasion and indoctrination. To the same point, we can see this imbalance even in the National Sex Education Standards, previously referenced by the Curriculum Committee in defense of inserting this controversial issue into the elementary school curriculum. Yet even these guidelines present as truths concepts that are theoretical and based on activist ideals. They include concepts like power and privilege, unconscious bias, intersectionality, and reproductive justice. These ideas, based on a handful of modern theories, are directly connected to a myriad of special interest groups. As we can see in this slide, the National Sex Education Standards were developed and supported in part by activist organizations whose primary focus is social and political change, not balanced educational pedagogy. Clearly, this instructional program that is currently being taught in our public schools does not fulfill what is required in Policy 2240, letter B, that the instructional program does not tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular view. So finally, we must ask ourselves if this curriculum fulfills what is required in Policy 2240, letter C. Does this curriculum encourage open-mindedness? Is it conducted in a spirit of scholarly inquiry? As we have already shown, this is a narrow, one-sided presentation of a very complex concept. When only one side of a controversial issue is shown, it can never encourage open-mindedness. Open-mindedness requires that there are multiple perspectives, and that, though one might believe strongly in a certain way, through empathy, one can respect others who hold differing views. Since this curriculum presents the language and concepts of gender identity as though they are the only way to understand sex and gender, it actively encourages closed-mindedness. We then ask, is the lesson conducted in a spirit of scholarly inquiry? I guess as an academic myself, I generally don't associate cartoons with scholarly inquiry. I suppose though it may be possible for short, well-crafted films and animated videos to achieve this. However, in the animated curricular videos in question, A child presents gender identity concepts which are rooted in the language and thought of gender theory as though they are settled science. Presenting only one approach to a very complex issue does not encourage scholarly inquiry. With only one theory being presented as though it's an indisputable fact, these materials do not fulfill the scholarly inquiry requirement. In summary, according to District Policy 2240, this controversial curriculum needs to fulfill points A, B, and C to be permissible. As we have shown, it fulfills only half of one of the points and thus should not be allowed to be a required opt-out instructional program because it doesn't adhere to the policy that governs controversial issues. Apart from today's topic of curricular adherence to District Policy 2240 in the area of controversial issues, there are other topics that have rightly been brought up in the public comment periods, both in the last meeting and today. Concerns brought up from a diversity of perspectives regarding the topics of standards, beliefs, bullying, and mental health. The parent group would also like to consider these concerns. In their original defense, the curriculum committee cited the National Sex Education Standards. Given the state-based structure of public education in our country, the committee should have defaulted to grade level guidelines as spelled out in the Wisconsin DPI curricular standards that state these topics be addressed by the 8th grade, not required in the 5th grade. Instead, the curriculum committee based its decisions on a non-governing set of standards. By placing this curriculum in the elementary grades, the committee has put our 5th grade teachers in a position where they must present topics outside the governing standards for this grade level. Another point that was brought up in the public comment session was that gender identity concepts presented in the curriculum are based on non-materialist belief systems. It has long been the case that what is being taught in public, non-sectarian schools must be based on observable truths found in the material world. This is what allows a pluralistic community like ours to have an educational system where students of all faiths and creeds can come together in one learning environment. However, gender identity as a concept is a metaphysical one. In other words, it requires a belief in something unobservable in the physical world. Instead of teaching that we should respect others' beliefs and treat them with dignity, the curriculum dictates that all must acknowledge and support another student's personal metaphysical claim. Of course, we can all have our beliefs and should respect each other no matter our opposing views, but the public schools are not a space where adherence to specific metaphysical belief-based materials can be taught. This has been the realm of the private schools, and they've been doing it for decades, as is their right. However, this is not permissible in public education, not even in the name of compassion and acceptance. It's been said already, but bears repeating, that bullying in any form against any group of students is completely unacceptable in the schools. That is why there are disciplinary protocols and anti-bullying administrative policies governing student behavior. These behavioral issues are best addressed through administrative classroom management measures. They are issues of student conduct, not educational content. It's unfair to expect our teachers to solve an administrative problem through curricular materials. Again, we all agree that bullying does not belong in our schools. If bullying is an endemic problem to the Superior Public Schools and the current student conduct guidelines are not effective or are not being followed, it would seem vital that the district work quickly to address this problem and to provide a safe space for our students to learn. If this is a persistent problem in our Superior Public Schools, civility and compassion need to be taught and modeled both in school and out. A one-sided 30-minute fifth grade presentation will not fix this problem. Like with bullying, I believe that everyone attending here is concerned about the mental health problems that plague our young people today. They need to feel loved and accepted. The parent group supports the efforts being made by the district to improve access to mental health related services and resources for our students. Continuing to improve access to mental health professionals and resources is vital to supporting our most precious resource, our young people, our future. In summary, this curriculum presents, by definition, a controversial issue. The district policy requires that any controversial issue be presented in a curriculum must be appropriate for the maturity level of the students. An understanding of the brain development and abstract reasoning skills of this age group shows that this requirement is not met by the curriculum. Further, the district policy does not allow for curricula that tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. As we have illustrated, this one-sided curriculum does indeed tend to indoctrinate and to persuade students to a particular point of view. Finally, the policy requires the presentation of a controversial issue to encourage open-mindedness and a spirit of scholarly inquiry. As we have already shown, this curriculum does neither. Members of the board, it is clear that the current gender identity curriculum does not fulfill all of the requirements of District Policy 2240. Therefore, the parent group respectfully requests that following district policy and in adherence with Wisconsin DPI curricular standards, this controversial curriculum be moved from the elementary schools. The board could also consider moving this to a parent and guardian approval process that encompasses an opt-in approach, or might consider only providing these resources as supplemental educational materials for parents and guardians to discuss with their children. For families, these concepts can then be better addressed in a way that is appropriate for the maturity level and emotional stability of each individual child. By voting for one of these sensible solutions, we can follow the board-approved policy that was created for situations just like this one. In this way, our district schools can truly become places where all means all, where parents and educators are once again working as a team, and where our public schools truly do unite us. Thank you.
We'll have the presentation by the district's administration.
Good evening, everyone. Or you all know me, but I'm going to introduce myself quickly so the public is aware of who I am. My name is Crystal Hintzman. I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for the Superior School District, and I'm beginning my 25th year as an educator in this district. My goal tonight is to give you, the board, as much information as I possibly can in a short amount of time so that you are able to make an informed decision from the lens of how professional educators do this work. I'm going to share a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I'm going to speak quickly, but I've provided you with some handouts and my presentation to help you along the way while I'm sharing the information. There are two things that we always consider as priorities when determining curriculum in our profession. First, we follow best practice. By that, I mean we use state and national level standards, and we use guidance, research, and resources from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. The other priority we always consider is that we are ensuring we are inclusive, which means that we promote all students seeing themselves in our curriculum. Additionally, we always take into account 4 considerations that are in district policy when determining curriculum: the appropriateness for the age and the material, the accuracy, the objectivity, which means we must deal with facts without being distorted by personal beliefs or opinions, and the use of materials. These factors are always considered by our professional staff as we review standards, make curriculum decisions, and select instructional materials. I want to present you with a timeline. I'm not going to speak through all of these items, but I want to highlight a few things beginning back in 2013 that got us to the place we are today, where we have a lesson on gender identity and expression in our 5th grade classrooms. As was mentioned earlier by one of the speakers, we had a grant that began in 2013. It was a non-competitive grant called the Wellness and Youth Grant, often referred to as the Wiley Grant. One of the required components of that grant was that we provide professional development and support for our LGBTQ students. We have continued providing that training ongoing since 2013. I specifically want to mention that in 2013, we provided all district staff at our Welcome Back a training on the use of preferred pronouns. In the spring of 2021, our counseling team and many teachers requested additional training on gender identity and expression so they could continue to support the students they serve. In May of 2021, all of our K-12 counselors were asked to give input on how our human growth and development curriculum was going. That information was gathered so it could be helpful data to inform our community stakeholder committee that was gathered in July of 2021. That committee met and made recommendations. One of them was to include a lesson at the 5th grade level on gender identity and expression. In August of 2021, I stood in front of you as the school board and shared with you updates from that curriculum committee's work. One of those updates was that we were adding a lesson on gender identity and expression at the 5th grade level. Throughout the fall and winter of last school year, our counselors and administrators worked as a team to prepare to update that instruction that will get taught for the first time at the 5th grade level in late spring 2022. I want to talk a little bit about that community stakeholder committee. You can see on the screen that there are a wide range of stakeholders on that committee, ranging from students and parents to health practitioners, administrators, a staff member from CASDA, and clergy, and a school board member. One of the things that that committee did was look at data. I'm going to share just a few examples of the data that that committee looked at. One of them was data from the 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Survey that over 1,000 students at our high school took. 81% of our high school student body at that time took this survey. I'm highlighting 2 pieces of data from that survey for you. One is when students were asked about if they felt a sense of belonging in our school, 62% of straight cisgender students said that they felt a sense of belonging, compared to only 33% of their LGBTQ peers that said they felt that sense of belonging. The other piece of data I want to share with you is that when asked if they had been bullied at school and or online, 29% of straight cisgender students said that they had, compared to 61% of their LGBTQ peers. Another piece of data that that committee looked at was a report that was published in the Journal of Adolescent Health. It included 3 decades of research about comprehensive sex education. It included many recommendations. One of them I'm going to read to you. It says, starting in kindergarten and scaffolding lessons therefore through grade 12, young people should receive lessons that explore their ideas and understanding of gender, gender expression, and gender norms, and learning about social equity, power and privilege, and healthy relationships. A few other pieces of data as examples that that committee looked at were things like LGBTQ youth are considered to be at a higher risk of suicide. We must have an inclusive curriculum. And probably one of the most important pieces of data is that current and former LGBTQ students have expressed to many staff members the need for us to create inclusive classrooms starting in the elementary grades. Our students have shared that they felt much confusion in the elementary years, and if ignored, the topic of gender identity and expression causes even more social isolation. The last piece of data that I want to share with you the committee looked at was feedback from our staff, the staff members that work alongside our students every single day. They said things like, we need to add a gender identity lesson at grade 5. We need to add gender roles and stereotypes to our grade 5 curriculum. We need new curriculum booklets at grade 5 that include biological sex, gender identity, and gender roles and stereotypes. Now I want to talk to you about the standards that that curriculum committee looked at. Standards, I want to tell you what they are because sometimes there are misconceptions about that. The purpose of standards is to provide clear expectations about what students should know and be able to do by the conclusion of certain grade levels. For all content areas, we use multiple sets of state and national standards as part of the curriculum and materials decision-making process. This is true for math, ELA, tech ed, health, Phy-Ed. There are multiple sets of standards that we use. That committee looked at 4 different standards that the 403-page document from DPI encourages us to look at and use when designing human growth and development curriculum. First, there is a required list of topics from DPI that must be covered in human growth and development. Oftentimes, people refer to that required list of topics as the Wisconsin HGD standards. We are also told to consider the family consumer science standards, health education standards, and the national sex education standards in this work. I want to say a few things about the national sex education standards. They say that the goal of education is to help sex education is to help young people navigate sexual development and grow into sexually healthy adults. In order for this to be effective, sex education must include medically accurate information about a broad range of topics, some of them being gender identity and expression and sexual identity and orientation. Quality sex education goes beyond just delivering information, though. It provides young people with opportunities to explore their own identities. There is one strand of the National Sex Education Standards called gender identity and expression. This strand outlines the functional knowledge and essential skills students need to address fundamental aspects of people's understanding of who they are as it relates to gender, gender identity, gender roles, and gender expression. I have clips straight from those National Sex Education Standards I want to share with you. This first slide are the gender identity and expression lessons that students should be able to do by the end of 2nd grade. This slide I'll spend a little bit more time on. These are the gender identity and expression lessons that students should be able to do by the end of 5th grade. You have these as a handout. I know the print is pretty small, so on the back of your handout, I have also listed them in a list. You can see it says such things as distinguish between sex assigned at birth and gender identity and explain how they may or may not differ. Define and explain differences between cisgender, transgender, gender non-binary, gender expansive, and gender identity. Explain the gender expression, that gender expression and gender identity exist along a spectrum. Describe the gender role stereotypes and their potential impact on self and others. Identify trusted adults, including parents and caregivers, whom students can ask questions about gender, gender roles, gender identity, and expression. And last but not least, demonstrate ways to promote dignity and respect for people of all genders, gender expressions, and gender identities, including other students, their families, and members of the school community. The committee that included community stakeholders approved the teaching of those 5th grade standards. After that committee met, then the district staff does their hard work and decides what curriculum we're going to teach. DPI explicitly says that the primary curriculum writers are the content specialists within the district, which would include teachers and curriculum coordinators who have formal professional preparation in curriculum instruction and student assessment. Our group of counselors and administrators, as we met multiple times throughout last school year, also took into consideration what district policy tells us, that appropriateness for age, accuracy, being objective, and how we're going to use those materials. This is just an example of many resources that we looked at and vetted as we tried to decide what would be the best material to put in front of our 5th grade students. On this slide, I've included for you just a little visual of how this goes when we work on this in our profession. We always include a scope and sequence conversation and document because we know that lessons do not just happen in isolation. They must fit into a sequence of lessons so it makes sense for students. The lesson that's highlighted and read on here is the 5th grade gender identity and expression lesson, which includes the 5 Google Slides and the 2 videos, which the complaint was about. I do want to highlight that 5th grade parent letter is a really important piece of this. That is sent home prior to instruction. I have put in front of you a copy of the 5th grade letter that all 5th grade families received last spring prior to the instruction. You will see as we list all of the topics that children will learn in those lessons that gender identity and expression is on that list. There is no intention to not be transparent about what we teach children. Parents may opt their child out of these lessons, and parents can always request to preview these materials before they are taught to children. I want to say something about the opt-out option. This is a statement directly from Wisconsin DPI. It says that state law requires that parents have the option to exempt their children from HGD instruction. This is called the opt-out option. Wisconsin statutes do not provide, and legislative history does not support, the use of the parental opt-in method by local school districts in which parents give permission for their children to participate. I want to say something. There's a timer going, okay, right. Okay, it's not my timer, I hope. All right. I want you to know that the opt-out option is not a new procedure just because of the gender identity and expression lessons. How it works is a principal, a teacher, a counselor can take a written request, email request, phone call request, in-person request from any parent or guardian who wants to opt their child out of this lesson. I need to pause and address some information that was shared in public at the August 8th school board meeting. At the August 8th school board meeting, a statement was made by one of our petitioners whose name is signed on the complaint and the appeal. The petitioner's statement was made in the context of them being a substitute teacher in a classroom where the gender identity and expression lesson was being taught. The petitioner implied that the opt-out process was not followed by our school counselor that day. The petitioner stated this, quote, "I brought them into the classroom and they learned the lesson. I would feel horrible if my child got that lesson when I had opted them out," end of quote. You need to know that this is misinformation about what happened in that classroom. The counselor teaching that lesson is a very experienced staff member and is outstanding at her job. She had one student in the classroom that day whose parent had opted them out of that lesson. She took that student to the library with their book so they could read while the rest of that student's peers learned that lesson. All of our professionals take this procedure and instruction very seriously, and our teaching staff honor all of the requests that families give about opting out. Principals, counselors, and teachers communicate very well when an opt-out request is made, so everyone is aware. Sharing misinformation such as this only creates unnecessary fear in our community and parents. It contributes to a negative narrative about our teaching staff and our schools. We must call this out when it happens and support our staff who work very hard every day to do what is right for all students. I have 2 final thoughts I need to share with you. The first is this: as you make your decision tonight, it is very imperative that you remember that prior to tonight, this lesson for 5th graders has been vetted 4 times in this school district. First, the stakeholder committee of our community members did it in the summer of 2021. Second, our counselors and administrators throughout last school year worked hard to vet materials. Third, after the complaint was made, an appointed committee met in 2 public open session meetings and voted unanimously to leave this lesson in the curriculum as is. And fourth, Amy Starzecki approved this recommendation to leave it in the curriculum. My final thought I want to share with you is this. I want to make my recommendation to you very clear. As the director of curriculum instruction for our school district, the one who is responsible for the curriculum for our students, it is my strong recommendation to you that you vote to leave this 5th grade lesson on gender identity and expression in our curriculum as it is. Thank you.
I have a few final thoughts.
Go ahead.
Dear Superior Board of Education, I want to share with you the rationale for my decision on this matter earlier this summer. First, I want to address the construction of the review committee that was developed per policy 9130. On June 14 and 16, a group of educators thoughtfully reviewed the formal complaint filed in the spring of 2022. Members of the review committee that reviewed this complaint consisted of the Director of Curriculum Instruction, an elementary principal, a nationally board certified 5th grade classroom teacher, and an elementary counselor, all of which hold bachelor's and master's degrees in the field of education. Collectively, they bring over 70 years of experience to our district. I share this background to highlight the level of education and experience they bring to this important conversation. Our educators are highly qualified professionals who understand and apply the science of teaching and learning and child development with their students every single day. A question has been raised about why district experts in the field of education were allowed to vote and weigh in on the recommendation of this curriculum complaint. The answer, simply stated, they are the experts on the topic of K-12 curriculum and instruction and have the most understanding of this particular lesson in question. Now I want to specifically address points raised by petitioners, including policy 2240. Petitioners have shared that this topic is offensive to them. I want to draw your attention to the last paragraph of policy 9130. No challenge material may be removed solely because it presents ideas that may be unpopular or offensive to some. Petitioners have also shared this material is not age appropriate for grade 5. Considering a panel of national and state educational experts have incorporated this topic into 5th grade curriculum standards means it is age appropriate. Petitioners believe teaching the topic of gender identity is indoctrination. Our teachers are providing a broader perspective as opposed to a narrow definition of this topic. Our highly qualified educators are explaining what it is as opposed to who they should be. Now I want to share a specific quote that was sent to our school board on April 14th, 2022 by one of the petitioners. When my daughter was in preschool, she identified as a dragon. She acted like a dragon. She told everyone she was a dragon. She was told that she could not participate in class if she continued to be a dragon. Being a dragon was how she felt on the inside. So why was she told she could no longer be one? Probably because scientifically she is a girl, not a dragon, and being a dragon is irrelevant to her education. Statements like these, as well as baseless rumors that have circulated in this community and nationwide regarding litter boxes in our school restrooms, are highly offensive and contribute to creating a toxic school environment that marginalizes our LGBTQIA population. It is these insensitive remarks and rumors that result in tragic stories like we heard from Superior students and parents at the August 8th board meeting, and have had numerous emails sent to the school board in recent weeks. This lesson is important in our work to ensure an inclusive setting that is free from harassment and bullying. As a superintendent, My decision regarding this matter was to adopt and follow the committee's recommendation made by educational experts. The recommendation is we continue to teach the lesson and add more information to the notice for parents in order to add to the transparency that already exists. Our educators take this process very seriously and honor any request from families to review material prior to the lesson and opt out if they choose. I am specifically asking you tonight to support my decision on June 23rd. Across the country, there is a significant shortage of teachers and principals. Continued attacks and lack of respect for the professional judgment of our educators has a direct impact on this shortage. I urge our school board to support the professional judgment of our outstanding teachers and administrators. Show them that you value the commitment and dedication they bring to all students in the Superior School District. I want to leave the board with a set of questions as you make your decision tonight. As a school board, is it your purpose to provide directives to teachers that strays from national and state curriculum standards in determining what is taught in our classrooms? Or is your role to create an environment where every child succeeds, including our LGBTQIA+ students? As a school board, do you have a responsibility to understand who makes up our entire population of students, in addition to your own children and grandchildren, and to develop an understanding of what those students need to be successful, including our LGBTQIA students? And lastly, as a superintendent of a public school district, I have a moral and ethical obligation to ensure we create a safe and welcoming school environment for all children in order to ensure every student walks across that stage of graduation. As a school board, do you have that same moral and ethical obligation?
Okay, I'd like to thank both of the petitioner and the administration for their presentations. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move into the action item, and that's the board's decision on appeal of the district administrator's decision.
Move to approve and support the decision made by.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to
support and approve the decision by District Administrator Starzecki. Sorry, Mom.
In a second. You got that, Ann? And from there, we'll move into discussion.
My name is Steve Olson. I'm a 40-year educator in the School District of Superior, a very proud one. This, my 3 years now on the board, or starting my third year, is probably one of the toughest decisions that I have encountered. I have appreciated immensely the speakers on the 8th, the speakers tonight. I appreciate immensely the work of the curriculum committee, their research, their recommendation. I appreciate the fact that the principals, counselors, and other teachers, not during their school day time, but on off-duty time, are dedicated to providing a curriculum that is very viable, that is very educational. This topic is controversial. There is no doubt about it. I appreciate all of you tonight because of the way that you conducted yourself. We've been asked to keep our emotions out of this, and that's very difficult to do. We've been asked to be objective, and I will try my darndest to do that. I was part of the review committee. And part of my responsibility was to follow 9130 public requests, suggestions on complaints. The first meeting, which I chaired, copies of the petitioner's complaint are distributed. We did not get a copy. I'm not so worried about that. In fact, I felt for Joe. I felt for you that day, Joe, because of the timeline. And you did your best to present what you presented. Joe was able to make a 15-minute presentation, and we do have notes on that, and there is recording on that. Then the school district was able to present their side. On the second meeting, which I led again, it was a discussion of the 5 people on that review committee. Unfortunately, one of the requirements of 9130 is that the public that was there that evening could not be part of the conversation. And I felt bad when Mr. Lemaster asked at the end of the presentation if I was able to answer a question about the makeup of the committee. And I told him I could not. And I could not because of the requirements of 9130. We reviewed the materials from both the petitioner and the district, and we supported at that time that the curriculum be supported, that it continues at the 5th grade level. During that 2-day period, Tuesday to Thursday, that isn't a lot of time. I expressed that night or that day, the second day, that I felt like I was back in college or perhaps even back in a setting where I got a headache from all the articles that I read in support of the science, requests that were being made so that I could make an informed decision as best as I could. I support the curriculum. I support that the curriculum remains at the 5th grade level. However, what we require of our teachers, and when I was a teacher and an administrator, is that we review. When the teacher is in the classroom teaching our students in the school district, if a student struggles with a concept, whether it be math or whatever subject, we ask that our teachers review the material. We ask that all students, the students that did not get a particular concept, we ask the teachers to reflect, to look back. What did I miss? What did I not get across to that student so they learned? I have that same responsibility here tonight as well. And I've been thinking about that. There was talk about gender theory. There was talk about indoctrination. And Mr. Jones, thank you very much for your presentation. Indoctrination in education. Yeah. Keep my personal thoughts out of this. I come from what I call a Christian family, and I was accused during this time that, my God, Stephen, your mother would roll over in her grave. But I also had to remind that person who I respect, and we're going to agree to disagree, that I felt that I was very indoctrinated by my religion. I don't feel that this is indoctrination. I personally feel that it is education. We are teaching our students how to accept one another. We are teaching our children to respect, and I really appreciate the word love. Mrs. Gilderoy Madrid, you mention that quite often. Mr. Jones, you mentioned that. I trust the fact that the educational people that have made this decision are more than highly qualified to do that. I know there will be some other questions from other board members, but I am in complete support of keeping the curriculum as is.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any other discussion at this time?
At this time, are we allowed to have conversation about recommendations or things of that nature?
You can ask questions, you can.
Okay. At this point, I also would agree that the curriculum stay in 5th grade. But I ask that a recommendation be considered for, you can call it opt-in, you can call it opt-out. I don't care what you label it as. I don't care if the boxes are checked or not, but just that this is decided at the time of registration to assure that all parents have seen it and made the decision the best choice for their child possible. Obviously, we can't do that for this year, but I would ask that it be considered as an option for next school year.
Can I just address that?
Go ahead.
Just to address the logistics of that proposal, we provide registration materials at the end of July, beginning of August. When families are presented with this letter, the very first question families have is, I want to see the materials. I want to be able to talk about this with my classroom teacher. Teachers are not in session in August. So logistically, that creates a barrier. So I just wanted to explain the logistics of that as an option. And that was considered, I believe, when this was introduced. And because of the logistics, it was not part of the back to school registration for that reason. So, but I just wanted to explain that.
No, and you and I have talked about that. I think that it's something that can be solved. I think that there can be a solution for it. But again, just trying to add that extra transparency, allow the parents to formally see it and see the materials presented, and then to continue doing what we do and present the materials 2 to 3 weeks prior to the teaching, and then allowing parents to potentially change their minds even through the year. Because if we're filling out registration like we just did for our students, things can change in those months before the teaching. And so just being fluid with that and allowing that to happen. But that's my recommendation. We do it for things, we have field trips, we have busing, parents fill out all of this stuff at registration time. So I don't think it's too much to ask.
So you're saying like this particular letter would go in the registration packet?
I'm saying that they would have boxes either checked or unchecked, whatever. Again, I don't care what, but what do they want their student opted in or opted out of at that time, with perhaps some links? I mean, this still has to be, talked about with what we can provide, but with the materials provided at the time that parents are doing registration. Again, just to assure that every parent has seen it. I don't think that that's too much to ask.
I'm just thinking about listening to Dr. Starzecki, knowing again, Christina Kintop, Dr. Kintop, addressing our teachers, putting in all their time at this time of the year. Again, we keep saying that we're trying to listen to our teachers. We're trying to do better for our teachers. And I believe that's what some of our board members run on, is saying that they're representing teachers. And that, I think, again, is where we shouldn't be dictating or micromanaging what our teachers and our staff are trained to do and do every single year.
Hi, my name is Steve Stupak, and I want to thank everybody for coming up and bringing your concerns. You guys, you hit both sides right on the head, and I really, really appreciate it. I'm in all favor of the curriculum, except for I'd like to keep it kept in the middle school level.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank everybody for the stories that they shared, some very deeply personal and challenging stories. The emails are very thorough, and people took a lot of risks to share their ideas and the things that they would like us to hear and consider. I appreciate the participation that each person, how they involve themselves in this process. And I just wanted to say that that's not always the easiest thing to do. So thank each of you that did that. And that's really all I had to say about that. All
right, thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, jeez.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So first, I'd just like to say that I'm getting a lot of feedback. Let me turn my speakers. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and speaking, not only tonight, but in the first meeting we had back in August 8th. I appreciate everybody's side, whether you're for or against. I appreciate everybody coming out and voicing their opinions and their thoughts. You know, whether it's one person or 30 people making a complaint, every community member has that right and has that ability to make that complaint and have their complaint go to the board, to this stage. I'd like to break this down into 3 sections. As we talked about it, we talked about the opt-out. I follow state statute. State statute gives that as a requirement. There's nothing we can do about it. State statute tells us we have to do it. We follow Wisconsin law on the opt-out clause. I agree with Brooke. She talks about adding it to a registration. I think that's a great idea. I think there's about 5 different things I either opt my kids into or out of when I complete the registration form every year. If we need to revisit that during the year with the letter to give teachers an opportunity to discuss it with parents, then so be it. I think having that on the registration is a good start and adds that transparency to the curriculum. And I think it would take nothing to add a drop down deciding, asking parents to opt out of or into, whatever you want to call it, every bit of curriculum with that health and human development. Second, parent access, transparency, access to the curriculum. That's also a state statute, the Wisconsin state statute that we have to follow. If parents want it, you have to give it to them in its entirety. And we need to make sure that we as a district do a better job of providing that curriculum to the parents when it's requested. And not in just the form of a link to a website, but the actual curriculum, the documents and the videos, everything all together. I think those first 2 things, opting out and parental access to the curriculum, is something we can all agree on because it's state mandated. The third part I look at is the curriculum and the appeal, whether to keep it in 5th grade, put it in middle school, or get rid of it. I don't think anybody here on this board is asking to get rid of it. I think we all see somewhat of a need to talk about it and to have it within our curriculum. So that leaves either keeping it in 5th grade or moving it, or keeping it in middle school. I believe it's already in middle school if I'm not mistaken. I am going to side with Steve on this one. I believe it should be in the middle school. And the reason I believe it should be in the middle school is because, again, I'm following Wisconsin. I'm not following the federal government. I'm following Wisconsin. Now, a state law doesn't necessarily cover gender identity and or expression. DPI does cover. And we should follow DPI. We should follow the state of Wisconsin, in my opinion. And DPI says by the end of 8th grade. That is no way telling any students that we don't love them, don't care about them, don't respect them. But that's my opinion on following the state of Wisconsin, as I have with the first 2 topics, and keeping it within the DPI standard of by 8th grade, which I believe you do in 7th grade already. So my vote no on the motion is simply because I believe it should be in middle school and not the elementary school. Not that I don't care about anyone or love anyone. It's based solely on the aspect of following the state of Wisconsin.
All right, thank you, Ed.
Okay, can I add one thing?
You got more?
Yeah, just one more.
Okay.
I'd like to add, listen to the presentations. I thank both people for giving the presentations. The only thing I want to add, though, is when our own district wanted to correct an inaccuracy, we were talking about our own district staff. Substitute or full-time, everybody is a staff member of our district. And I don't think we needed to at least throw that person under the bus, make him feel any less of a district employee than a full-time staff. And that's probably not, favorable for me to say that right now, but this has been all an open presentation. And I just want to throw my support behind the staff member that came out and gave her real life experience in that classroom. And I'll leave it at that.
Is that it? Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. To go back to Brooke's thoughts. Obviously, it's too late this year to do that. It's not part of the motion for tonight, unless you're willing to amend it. Otherwise, we'd vote on the action item and we could.
Then I would make a motion.
Or we could visit your suggestion further down the road for next year.
That would be an agenda item on one of our board
Yes,
meetings.
it'd just be another agenda item at a different board meeting.
The thing though, Len, too, that I consider is that if this is going to take a little bit of time to tweak and to figure out, having a year to go ahead and do that might be beneficial for the people kind of.
Right, and that's why I'm saying if we take the time to put a plan together before we even.
Okay.
Bring it forward. You follow what I'm saying?
Thank you. And would it be timely, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. Is that okay with everyone?
I like it.
Okay. All right.
Is there any more discussion tonight?
I do have a statement I want to make just to address a lot of the comments about the existence of trans folks, because there is trans youth in here, there's trans non-binary folks, and when we say all means all, no matter what our personal beliefs are, that is what our school district has adopted as our strategic plan. So I just want to say before we vote on this, that we don't need to set the bar lower. Wisconsin was 18th in the state, so we can do better. I am proud of our curriculum staff, of our teachers for looking for higher standards, because that's what we should be holding ourselves to. In addition, I just want to say, and I wrote this down, sorry, so I don't screw it up, the existence of trans and gender diverse people, including children, is empirically established. It is an empirically established fact. They're in this room, folks. And so there have been many peer-reviewed sources with guidance on trans youth and creating a safe learning environment. That's why we have places like Lifehouse. That's why we have GSA. That's why these are people in our community, beautiful people that bring a lot to this school district, Our staff members, I want you to hear, we see you, you are here, we will acknowledge you, no matter how this vote comes out tonight. And with the younger, the better, folks. Come on now.
All right. I had a long thing written out too, but pretty much everything I wrote down has been said already. I do still want to thank everybody that's here tonight. Thank you for coming and giving us your thoughts. It's much appreciated. I want to thank Mr. Jones. I want to thank the administration, our staff, the board. This is a very, very tough decision, but it's one that has to be made. Is there any other discussion before we move to the vote? It's going to be a roll call vote.
Question, Mr. President, just to be clear, how we vote will be in favor of or not in favor of?
The motion was to accept the district administrator's decision. So you vote yes, you're accepting her decision. If you vote no, then you're not.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
All right. Keep track of the vote, Ann. Here we go. All right. There's no other discussion. Roll call vote. We'll start with Ed.
No.
Steve Stupak.
No.
Steve Olson.
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes.
Laura Gapsky.
Yes.
Brooke Taylor.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here tonight. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Just could have went anyway.
I was ready for it.